verse, let me know. There's only so much.
We're live.
Got it.
Okay, guys, welcome to my regular Wednesday night live stream. I need to give a shout out first to my guest before I even say any more because it's 2 a.m. there. He went to sleep. Yeah, poor bugger. He went to sleep and then woke up again. Just to be able to do this, so I really appreciate it. Mark Sargent, you are considered the godfather of the flat earth movement of today's day and age. I saw this on a mainstream video. I think it was CBS who went to a convention of yours and that kind of stuff. So that's where I found your name. But then a friend of mine said, "Oh, be careful. I don't know who that guy is, and he might be a psyop." And when you said you were friends with, oh, he didn't know who you were. Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
when I wrote you an email asking you whether you knew who David Weiss was, I knew that through your response you were not a psyop because you guys are acquainted. And so I found that really interesting.
Yeah.
So that connected. Yeah. So before we begin, guys, as usual, you'll normally read a Bible verse. I didn't prepare one before, but I'll just read whatever the app says for today. I also was supposed to prepare one Bible verse that I knew confirmed or corroborated the globe view. Anyway, so according to the Bible app for today's verse of the day, Mark chapter 16 verse 15, and he said unto them, "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." Okay, so that's good message. Preach the sacrifice that Christ made for us on the cross for our sins. I think that's a good message for everyone to know. So today I have Mark Sargent. I appreciate you coming on. Before we begin, I think it's important for you to know that I bring on all types of guests. I always have on my channel. I brought on racists. I've brought on like yesterday, I had a woman from the World Health Organization. That's going up next Wednesday because she couldn't do live on a Wednesday for me. I've had all types of guests, but you have caused quite the disturbance for me. Thanks a lot. No, kidding.
It's expected. Everybody, again, I've lost count of the amount of interviews I could not do because they thought the topic was too controversial. So
I don't know why that is.
I'm tickled. Wonderful, great, yeah. And ITV really depends. Some producers really love it. So sometimes I get lucky and get to do national interviews, and sometimes they say nope, not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I've been delving into this little rabbit hole for quite some time now. Well, I say quite some time. That's not true. It's been 3 days. But my whole entire drive leaving Victoria, coming into New South Wales, I was listening to content from flat earth people. And I was getting sucked in. But then when I watched someone named Dr. I forgot his name. I don't think he's a real doctor, but some science guy that you guys have tried to debunk. I think this is a particular YouTuber that you butt heads with. He kind of brought me back. But so I just wanted to begin with the reasons why I can agree with you.
Sure.
So for those watching, I don't know anything about science. A lot of you know that I'm not particularly intelligent with that kind of stuff. I'm not particularly smart with maths, but what I am smart with is political stuff, political awareness. That's the main gist of my channel. And I don't trust lots of organizations, including NASA, including the science community at large. As a Christian, you can't observe a human you can't observe a fish becoming some sort of a weird monkey creature, ape thing, to then a human. And so if I'm supposed to be a good Christian, if I'm supposed to be the right type of Christian, I need to take the Bible as literally as possible. Now, the Bible, in my view, actually corroborates the spherical model, but you say that according to all of the stuff that I've seen, many of you guys claim that there are 200 verses in the Bible that actually corroborate the Gleason's model, which is the flat Earth model. Which, for those who want to know what the flat Earth model is, it's not literally a flat Earth. There is also a dome around it. So that is the Earth, and then around the Earth there is a firmament. The Bible does talk about a firmament, meaning like in the Simpsons movie, there's the dome. However, if you look at a ball, the ball can have a firmament too. Like, it's not that impossible for God to have created the Earth, and then for there to and for there to be a force field or a firmament around the whole entire globe.
Yeah.
And so those are my two arguments. Where do you want to go from? Do you want to start from the not trusting organizations, or do you want to start from the model and the firmament?
Well, let's do this. Would you say that your audience is mostly biblical, Christian in nature?
Oh, you sent me a private message. Yes, I would say that.
Perfect. All right, let's start there. Your opening Bible verse, I would counter that with
that opening Bible verse was just a Bible verse. It wasn't anything to do.
No. I know. But,
what's he doing?
You didn't have the chance to really see if there was something in the Bible that would, one of my favorite ones. Let's put it this way: have you ever heard of Wernher von Braun, the founder of NASA, German scientist that they extracted from Nazi Germany?
No.
Okay, perfect. It's fine.
Perfect. She doesn't know anything. Let me feel it.
I'll hit you with a lot of stuff and stop me as we go along. Wernher von Braun, who was the lead V2 rocket scientist in Nazi Germany. A lot of people don't know. In wars, if you are intelligent enough, if you are so much of a nerd, you will not get prosecuted for war crimes. You will be recruited. It's like, no, you've got a dollar value. And he was grabbed by the United States, and he was the guy that actually founded NASA. Wernher von Braun. If you have von in front of your name in Germany, it's from the aristocracy. And the Russians took half the scientists. We took the other half of the scientists. We both developed supposedly space programs.
By the way, some of my audience are also H deniers.
Hedge what?
H, the letter H, deniers.
What's H?
The small hats, deniers.
Well, we can't say that. We can't say that word.
I don't think so. Not for YouTube. I don't know. I just
you can say the word Holocaust. That's fine.
Okay. The Holocaust.
No. Don't worry about that. Let's jump.
Some of my audience is that. I don't know how I.
Anyone that is a Holocaust. Anyone that is a Holocaust denier, I'll give you an argument. But
we're not talking about that.
Well, no, real quick.
Okay.
In the United States, there was a comedy series, a World War II comedy series called Hogan's Heroes.
Oh yes, I've heard of them. I've seen it.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, what's the point? My point is, who was in Hogan's Heroes? You had an American, you had a French guy, you had a black guy, you had an English guy. There were no Jewish people in Hogan's Heroes. Why not? Well, because they had their own camps. You can argue it all you want, but that's the absolute truth. Everybody else was in a mixed camp. The Jewish people had their own camps. Why? Because they had a compliancy issue, meaning they really didn't fight back much. Why? There was 1,000 prisoners for every 4 guards. So again, you can deny it all you want, but you cannot deny that they had their own camps. I don't care what the numbers say. It's like, it was 2 million, it was 6 million, it was whatever. They had their own, their own accommodations. You have to ask yourself why about that. Anyway.
Okay, there's Operation Paperclip.
Operation Paperclip was when,
put that up on the screen.
The United States, when they went into Germany, when they divided up all the scientists. So real quick, we don't want to delve too much on Wernher von Braun, but we can go all sorts of different directions. So Wernher von Braun, when he finally died in 1977, I believe, you can look up his headstone if you want, Wernher von Braun's headstone. You would have thought it would have been this magnanimous thing, this giant granite thing with a man pointing at the stars. No, it was just the year he was born, the year he died, and a Bible verse. And it said Psalms 19:1. I had to look it up. I didn't know what Psalms 19:1 was.
Neither. Yeah.
It's the King James version of, I believe, is and the firmament shows his handiwork. Why would the father of NASA, who was not a big religious guy, put that particular Bible verse
That is unusual.
on his headstone? Was he giving us hints from the grave? I absolutely believe that he was. I sent you a link real quick for anyone's out there, because this will really send you on your way.
Okay.
Because even though I can do chapter and verse, the guy who's really chapter and verse is a guy named Rob Skiba, a guy I converted back in 2015.
Oh, I know who that is. I follow him, but because of I believe in giants.
Oh, well, perfect. Rob Skiba is
the expert on giants. Yeah, and I've
well,
had
he's also one of the most popular flat Earth speakers out there.
And he's a Christian. Yeah, I'm
and
aware
he's a Christian, and
of
he
him.
got
Yeah.
so flipped out about the whole flat Earth thing. We did 2 big interviews back in 2015 when I didn't even have a podcast, and he ended up making a website called testingtheglobe.com, and where he goes in fine-tooth comb through chapter and verse everything in the Bible. And he comes back at me months later and he says, dude, the Bible is a flat Earth book. There is only one verse in the entire book. You can check this yourself, but the website's great, that even hints at some sort of globe, and it's Isaiah 40:22. He who sitteth upon the circle of the earth. He goes, that's a problem, because in the ancient Hebrew, circle is not globe, it's not ball, it's not sphere. Circle is circle. Your dinner plate is a circle. This is a circle. It just means some sort of round surface. It does not have to be a globe.
So a circle can just be like that.
Yeah, that's a circle.
Yeah, but it's not a ball, according to
it's not a ball,
and a lot of you. Yeah.
And there's so many different verses we could go to, but I'll rattle off just a few ideas real fast. How many times you heard that the earth is fixed and immovable? A lot. That it's God's footstool. The story of Joshua.
God just rests his feet on there, does he?
Right, there you go. Why not? Why wouldn't he? The Joshua asked God to hold the sun and the moon in the sky for an extra day so he can slay more enemies, right? Well, that's super easy. When it's some sort of flat model, you just hold the sun and the moon in the sky. If it's a solar system, that's a way tougher to do physics-wise. The second coming, where everyone can see him at the same time. How does that work in a globe? It's
true, but with the second coming, sorry to interrupt, there's also the plagues. Like, there will be plagued again. Not us, will probably be dead and gone by then, but humanity will be plagued again. And a lot of that was thought to be meteors coming on Earth and the sun falling and people, the Earth being destroyed. So that doesn't match with that. But sorry, keep going.
It does. In a flat world, if the sky, okay, and let's clarify some things. What I believe in is, yes, we are living on a flat, stationary disk. It's not in space. There is no space. This thing could be sitting in God's
There is space, because that dude flew up. What's his name? Yuri, the first man in space. Yuri G. His surname begins with G. Anyway, he's been to
Soviet space program.
Huh?
The part of the Soviet space program, the USSR.
Yes, the first. Yes, they were the first people in space. He was in space.
Says who? The Soviets? Those guys?
What?
And then the Americans landed on the moon. Right, obviously.
Well, I don't know about the moon landing. I'm not going to say anything. I feel like that could have been completely acted, but I do believe.
But the Russians
that Yuri guy went to space. The thing is, when I said that to a different friend of mine who's a flat earther, he said, yeah, and that guy said it was a flat plane. But I don't know where that quote is, and no one's been able to supply me with it. So
I can't attach.
You're saying something different. You're saying says what the USSR space program was. My friend is saying no. He did go above the whatever the orbit is called, like the close orbit, not the far orbit or whatever.
Lower Earth orbit, yeah.
The lower Earth orbit, and he said it was a flat plane. But I haven't been supplied with any type of quote proving that. So anyway, keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
By the way, I can't in this. I can't attach images, can I?
No, you can't. I'm sorry.
That's right. No, I'll email it to you really fast. So.
And you want me to share it? Is that what you want me to do?
If you want, it would probably be helpful though. Here, let me do this. Let me attach. Let me send. Check.
Okay, Adrian, you said that he said it was flat. Thank you for watching. You never gave me the quote, dude. Anyway,
right.
I'm not yelling at you, Adrian. I'm just
anyway.
Saying.
So we are basically here. Let me give you the crib notes. So we are living in a building.
Yuri Gagarin. That's right. Thank you, Daniel. That's it.
Wouldn't matter what his name is. Actually, I don't have the Soviet space program guys mentioned because it doesn't matter. They're,
Okay, no worries.
they're useless. You are living in a building with walls and a floor and a ceiling, a construct, a building that is so huge that even our best and brightest never figured it out till almost 1960. And when they did, they decided to keep it a secret. But the ceiling, everything you see on the ceiling, why would they keep it? Okay, if you want to jump to why, that's perfectly fine.
Sorry, no. Finish what you were saying. Finish your thoughts. Sorry. We're probably not going to go for an hour today. We're probably going to end up going for 3.5 hours.
That's fine.
I just have so many questions.
Everything you see on the ceiling, the stars, the planets, the moon, the sun, they're all part of a giant projection system.
So
everything, all of this is moving, but it is everything you see up in the sky is just a giant ornamental clock that predates language. That's all it is. You do not even have to have language with it, though. The sky, again, this is a biblical thing, by the way. The sun, a massive light to light up the day, the moon, a wonderful night light, and then everything else to show signs and seasons, and of course, your occasional wonders. But you can track everything from your crops to everything else that you can track with the sky. It's a wonderful system, but it is completely artificial, built by God.
Of course, it's built by God.
Well, yes. And so anyway, testingtheglobe.com, highly recommend it. Rob Skiba, really great on this. So what was the second part?
Why? I think I said why.
Oh yeah, let's go into why real fast, which is like, why would they fake it?
I know what you're gonna say. It's that because, at least spiritually, if we are all alone in the universe, that can sell the narrative of other things, and the fact that we are actually the center of the universe, according to a flat earther, right. We being the center makes us more important. Just like we didn't come from monkeys, we actually were made in the image of God. That makes us more important.
Not just more important, but it discredits the groups that are trying to be the ultimate power. Meaning you can't be the ultimate authority if you're not the ultimate authority. If all of us, okay, let's get into it really fast, which is people say, by the way, I've got to clarify that we had nothing to do with the building of this, obviously, but there's a whole bunch of people, not you, that think that, we engineered this in some way. It's like, no, human beings had nothing to do with this. All we did was kind of figure out all the way until 1960, we had no idea. When we figured out in 1960, it's like, oh, wait a minute. The Earth is kind of built like this. It subverts a lot of things. 3 ways. First off would be academically. And that is every university. Think of every university in the world right now. Astrophysics and astronomy would be decimated. Never recover from it. And
can everyone see? Is this the image? Can you see an image?
I can see you, a bunch of replicated things, like when you first tried to share it, but I can't see the image. It's like a picture within a picture within a picture within a picture.
Yeah, crap. That's not what I want.
That's right.
Sorry, keep going. Keep talking.
Keep talking and in the remaining physical sciences, biology, archaeology, hydrology, geology, whatever it is, would have to be retooled from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
That's just academically. You're basically turning every university upside down, and that's a lot of them. There's thousands and thousands of universities out there.
Sure.
Economically, the markets are so twitchy, you would have to suspend world markets entirely for months because you would have to figure out what it means. And then the last one, the most important one, which would be the religious side of things, which is the main 5 religious houses of this world, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity. Oh, yeah, that is me. Yeah, I hate that shot. Ugh. I'm also wearing a hat. By the way, when I wear a hat, I'm 10 years younger.
Yeah, evidently. So Apollo 12. Can everyone see that?
Apollo 12. So anyway, so you give all those major religious houses leverage. Yeah, the Apollo 12 shot, if you can maximize it or not, whatever. You're giving them leverage against science. And science will not tolerate that. They will not sit for that. And so they decided just to keep it secret. I mean, it's not what the powers that be would stand to gain. Remember, they didn't even know for sure. They didn't even know until almost 1960. It's what they stand to lose, which is if the world figured this out. We were definitely not ready for it in 1960, not even close. But if there was a chance that the civilization would grab pitchforks and torches and just revolt, would you tell the people? That's the shortest Illuminati meeting ever. You know, they'd be like, what's the worst that could happen? And you start rattling off that stuff that I just did. And it's like, yeah, we're not going to tell anybody until we figure out exactly how we can use it to our advantage. And that's the big reason why. It's power and control, but the chance that they could lose what they already built. Civilization was already established in 1960. Could you have released it earlier? Yeah, maybe, but not now. Not until you had the infrastructure to set it up. And we do. High-speed internet, social media, 6 billion smartphones. You can pass off any narrative you want now. Like, I don't know, telling the whole world that there's this weird disease out there that's killing everybody and we should all lock down forever.
I think you and my audience will predominantly agree. The thing is, people have telescopes. People can see Saturn. People can see these things, and they say, "Oh, I can see the sphere."
Yep.
So
I can see the moons.
Say doesn't match that.
Yeah, I can see the moons of Jupiter. I've heard this many a time. It's like, I can see the moons of Jupiter. I go, great. Go to a planetarium. I know that dates me. Go to a planetarium with a pair of binoculars and look at Jupiter. Oh, okay, there's Jupiter. Can you see the moons of Jupiter? Yep. Can you land on it? Nope. Why not? Well, because you're looking at an image on a ceiling. And it's like, what's your point? My point is, when you walk out of that building, who's to say you're just not in a much bigger building with better technology? I mean, think about it. You bring a caveman into a planetarium, you could freak them out because everything on the ceiling, because they don't understand what they're looking at, the tech, that they will absolutely believe it as real. We've seen it many times in science fiction novels and television. Why would this be any different? You're living in a simulation, a movie. And the tech out there, we're discovering stuff with computers. We've been doing it for the last 20 years that proves that. Things scream right now that and by the way, it's not, if it's flat and enclosed, then God is a programmer. And that's not being blasphemous in any way, shape, or form. I'm saying we describe the world and the tools that are presented to us. And I think God's the greatest programmer of all time.
Absolutely. But there's just so many questions, because it's like, when you think of, when the planet is hang on, let me see. I tried to get the photo up. I can't.
As long as you can see it, you can add it later or give it to your people.
Sure.
But I want you to look at it.
But when you say things, when you and your crowd say water doesn't curve, and then you put a droplet of water onto a leaf, that's a little mini dome. When you are surfing and the water curves to suit your surf, that is curved water.
No.
The argument doesn't make sense.
Okay, two completely different things, and I'm not picking on you because I know you're.
No. I'm just going off what little science.
Single droplet of water, that's elemental. That's just water tension, and that is, yes, you're absolutely right. When you take a drop of water, it'll sit there. Well, it has to. It's not going to lay completely flat at a certain size, but you add enough water, at 10 drops, 20 drops, you can see it. That curve just squishes down, and then it becomes absolutely tabletop flat. You put 100 drops of water on a table, you're not going to see the curve. Oh yeah, you'll see a little bit of an edge at the very end where it connects to the table, but that's about it. And as far as water curving when you're surfing, no. Water can bend and do a whole lot of other things, but so can any liquid. At that point, water moves and it's flexible, but it lays completely flat, which is why we use it for long distance photography all the time. And it's great, which leads into another thing, which is, forget about the water, itself, the little droplet. When you look across any sort of body of water, I don't care if it's 10 miles, 50 miles, or whatever, you can see objects on the other side, which you should not be able to see. What's changed? Why are we talking about this now in 2021 instead of 1940, 1950? Why are we talking about this now? The reason is because of HD technology. When I made the clues, and it was not talked about in the documentary, the director and the producers of that documentary hated this topic by the end. It's why we never made a sequel. They burned bridges. Oh my God. By the end,
what was the documentary that you made again? Did I watch it? I feel like
the documentary was made.
The True Deception.
We shot it in 2017. Did the film festivals in 2018, and Netflix picked it up the beginning of 2019.
Oh, I haven't seen anything on Netflix. Okay. Right?
2017, 2018. Yeah, beginning of 2019. And but yeah, it's on Netflix, called Behind the Curve, and they hated it. They would not, and we shot for 7 months.
I have heard of it. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we shot for 7 months, and by the time they got to the end of it, they hated us. Oh my God, they hated us so much. because they were, none of them were part of us. They all were complete science people. I mean, whatever was on the media, like I could get into we could spend a lot of time on this. It's like, look, whatever's on the news is absolutely true. There is no bias. Everything is completely objective journalism. It's like, you can't be that naive. Come on. It's like, look, trust everyone, but count your change. Look what, the media is owned by corporations, which are owned by bigger corporations. Nothing is objective. It's never has been. They just only realized over the last 50 years, it's like, wait, we can tell people anything and they're just going to buy it but I don't blame them at the same. But if you're wondering, why the whole virus thing, why people's like, why is everybody going along with this? Because why would they not? I go, the news tells you when there's a traffic jam, when the weather's this, who won the Oscars. For the most part, they're true. If they want to slip in some other stuff and then really hammer it, is what alternative? Most people don't know that there's even such thing as an alternative opinion. Anyway, sorry. Back to let me show the image. The image.
I know. Sorry, we're jumping around a lot. I just don't know I don't know how to do this seamlessly. Okay. My head is full of crap. Yeah.
So Neil deGrasse Tyson, and this is part of my.
I've seen some of his.
Yeah. The world's most famous scientist, and there's only 3 media scientists in the entire world. One from America, Neil deGrasse Tyson, one from the Crown, which is Brian Cox, and then Michio Kaku from Japan. That's it. There's only 3 media scientists in the entire world, meaning there's only 3 guys they ever put on television. Neil said once, the good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it. Probably the most arrogant thing I've ever heard, meaning that science is absolutely right. What we say, what we put our stamp on is absolutely true. And then they revise it until it's, in my quote, my counter to Neil is that science is only true until the day it's not. Meaning, science has been wrong so many times about so many things. And then once they know they're wrong, they just put it under the umbrella that is science. They say, okay, well, this is the new truth. It's like, yeah, but you were criticizing everybody up until that point. Why would you do that? And so we're jumping around a bit. Let me throw something at you really quick. Let me knock out. By the way, if you are not a fan of the moon landing, because the moon landing might be fake, but that doesn't mean everything else is fake. And I've heard this before. It's like, why would anything else be real at all? If the Americans, by the way, another thing is why everybody outside of America still believes the Americans went to the moon. I understand it inside America. It's rah, rah, wave the flag, go team, we're the greatest, right? Right. But outside, you guys absolutely buy it. And everybody that I've talked to over the last 6 years of doing this, they've said, well, yeah, it's because it was on television. It's like, that's all it took. We just had to put it on TV and you guys believed it. Well, yeah, in magazines and stuff. It's like, okay. So the shot I sent you, by the way, is a magazine shot. This is an official NASA thing from Apollo 12. Apollo 11 was the first one in 1969, and Apollo 12 was shortly after that. And if you pull it up on your screen,
which I've tried to do, hang on.
Again, you don't have to put it on their screen, just your screen.
Oh yeah, fine. Yeah.
You can see it. I don't care if your audience see it. You can always share it with them. Right?
Yeah, I can see it. There's a man with there's a shadow, right? And you're talking
man taking a picture, and he's on the moon, and there's a dish, and then there's the capsule, and then remember, there's only 2 astronauts on the moon at a given time, because there's a third one that kind of orbits the moon. Supposedly, it's a whole other thing, right? So this shot, by the way, it's a beautiful shot, wonderful shot, crystal clear, high def. You can zoom into it. It's really, really great. The longer you stare at it, the worse it gets. Why? Well, because if you know anything about science, it defies laws of physics all over the place. But it's a good, iconic shot, right? Number one, everybody knows this. You're in a sunny place, right? If there's only one light source and it's 93 million miles away, you go outside right now and test this. All the shadows run parallel, right? So to each other. You can walk out. The tree, the mailbox, the car, they're all going to be running the same direction because there's only one light source. Well, that's kind of a big problem here because all the light sources all the shadows are going to intersect. There are at least 4 different shadow angles here. That's impossible unless the light source is really, really close. Like, I don't know, a stage light 30 yards behind the guy.
Wouldn't they have lights though? Wouldn't they have brought lights with them on the moon?
No. No, 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 nobody's. Why would you bring stage lights to the moon? No.
Not stage lights, but wouldn't they have brought torches or something
Nope.
strong enough so that they can, I don't know, I'm
No,
just
because they were
spitballing. I have no idea.
No, because they were going to be on the lit side of the moon the entire time. There's only one light source here. They're not bringing stage lights. There's two guys.
I didn't say that. I said lights, like maybe a
Any
big
lights. No,
flashlight
there was
or
never a
something.
flashlight
Maybe
on
on
the
the
moon. No.
helmet, like when you go camping, you have the little tiny torch on your head.
You know what? That's a great idea. And in sci-fi movies, you're absolutely right. I'm not trying to be mean.
I don't know.
No. In sci-fi movies, you're right. They do have little tiny lights on their helmets. Because you don't know when you might be going into a dark place. You're absolutely right. 6 years, no one's ever brought up that scenario. Thank you for doing that. However, the light that's here is massive. It's huge, and it's behind them, but the shadows are all going in the wrong directions. It can't be.
Okay.
Second, all sorts of footprints in the ash. Perfect little footprints everywhere, right? In the ash,
Yeah,
they never talk about. No one ever took a shovel and dug below apparently the ash is perfectly 3 inches deep around everywhere. It's like, what's below that? Is there rock? Are you going to show it? Are you going to blow some of this dust away? Okay, there's footprints everywhere, but underneath that big rocket nozzle, underneath that capsule, there isn't anything out of place. There's no blast pattern. There's no splay pattern. The ash should be completely gone. In fact, you should see this big burn crater underneath this thing. There's 10,000 pounds of thrust underneath that engine. Nothing's out of place. It's like it was just set there. No one wants to talk about it. That's fine. We won't even go into the stars, why there's absolutely not a single star in any shot on the moon, because people say, well, it's exposure settings. I go, fine. I'll give you that one. The exposure settings. I know exactly why, though, they didn't put stars. It's because the stars are a clock system, and they have to be in the right place at the right time. This thing's time and date stamped on the bottom of the image, meaning Orion on any given point has to be in the sky at a very specific point during the day. That's the whole point of the God star system. Well, if the belt of Orion is in the wrong spot, the nerds are going to pick it up on really quick, and you couldn't do that sort of 3D modeling in 1969. So somebody said, yeah, just don't do stars. Nobody talk about stars. We're not doing stars. Fine. That's my thing. The satellite dish in the middle of it, that's a VHF transmitter. That thing runs off a car battery. Hey, that's got no wattage whatsoever. It may do Morse code at 50 miles if you're lucky. And that thing supposedly was pumping out 10 frames of color video a second and perfect two-way communication with an Earth that was 250,000 miles away. And this was done in 1969. With what wattage? How? Even if you're bouncing it off to supposedly a geostationary capsule above, what wattage are you pumping back through the atmosphere? How are you lining this up with analog technology? It's a beautiful shot, but that's all you have to do. Is like, well, because how are you communicating? Well, it's the dish. Not 1969. No, I mean, I could drive 30 minutes from here. I'm going to lose cell signal. And in 1969, this thing was perfect. And then, of course, last but not least, the spacesuit. The spacesuit defies, they're running around there with that little backpack on them. Somebody tell me how that spacesuit combats the vacuum of space. And I'll give you a quick example.
But the vacuum of space, I already saw this in a video. It's not literally a vacuum that
It
sucks.
absolutely literally. Well, no. It's no pressure though. Meaning,
I'm just telling you. I'm just parroting what I heard.
That's okay. The definition of a vacuum is the ultimate pressure difference. Meaning, we are breathing in what we are talking through right now is not nothing. It's just invisible to our eyes. It is 80% nitrogen and 20% oxygen, which is why scuba tank guys usually have two tanks, one for nitrogen, oxygen, or they have one that's mixed, right? But it's full of stuff. It's chunky. You're basically living in a cloud, an invisible cloud or a soup. The thin version of water. You're not walking around. You're swimming in this thing. The only difference is it's thinner than water, right? A vacuum. And the reason why most people don't get this is because a vacuum looks almost identical to what we're breathing in right now, but there's nothing there. There's no nitrogen, there's no oxygen, there's no trace gases, there's nothing. There's an old science saying, which is nature hates a vacuum, and you're absolutely right. It's the difference when you blow up a balloon with your mouth and you let it go. Balloon flies off. Why? Because the pressure difference. There's more pressure in the balloon than outside of the balloon. Well, imagine there's nothing. There's no pressure outside that balloon. In fact, you can look this up on any media platform. Anything in a vacuum chamber, if it's soft, a balloon will explode. a can of anything will explode. Everything will explode in a freaking vacuum chamber because the pressure difference is so great. Except a spacesuit. And that's kind of a problem because a spacesuit is a soft suit. It's basically it's no different than a football. And I'll use your football, right? You know, if you put a football in a vacuum chamber, not a rugby ball, but a football, right?
The Aussie one.
Do the same thing. It'll explode because the soft, it'll just get more and more tight, and then it'll just burst. Why doesn't a spacesuit become a football? No scientist will answer that. I go, what is in that backpack that can combat the vacuum, the pressure difference? If you don't want like using the word vacuum, fine. The pressure difference between the inside of that suit and the outside of that suit. It should just go completely rigid. The guy should tip over, it should burst, and he should die, which is one of my challenges that I put out there for 3 years. You want to prove to me, and it's like, oh, is there anything can convince you that this actually a globe? I go, well, yeah, I got something down here that you could really help. I go, loan me a freaking spacesuit from any era, non-tethered, you know, because that's a completely self-contained backpack. Put me in a vacuum chamber, pull the switch, tell me what happens, tell me how I live, find me footage of an astronaut sitting around in a vacuum chamber. There should be thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of guys in a vacuum chamber. You know what the number one search is on YouTube when you type in guy in a vacuum chamber? Is James May from Top Gear.
Okay.
In a G-force suit in an American air base. It's not even an astronaut suit. It's a pilot suit. G-force suits are completely different. They're tethered. They're part of the plane. You know where astronauts train? They don't train in vacuum chambers. We don't see that. They train in swimming pools. Why would they train in a swimming pool? It's the exact opposite of what you would do. The swimming pool, the pressure is going in. Why would you be in water at all? Because we have to simulate the floaty feeling you get on the moon. I go, why would there be a floaty feeling on the moon? Well, because the gravity's so much less. I go, okay, so 180-pound man weighs 30 pounds. It's still 30 pounds. He's not going to float. It's still going to drop. 30 pounds still drops. No different. You wouldn't be moving in slow motion. Everything would be super fast. Anything, you'd have super strength. No one has anything. You could run extremely fast. Everybody would be moving in hyper motion because you would weigh nothing in compared to your muscles, but you wouldn't float. It was a brilliant cinematic technique, which was all you had to do.
You can buy the experience where you go in a room and you float.
You mean the 0G plane? Where
I don't know. It's a room. It's a room.
No, there's no air blowing underneath.
I saw it. I don't know. I saw it on The Big Bang Theory, and I think it's on plenty of other. I think it's
no. Okay,
it's a room, and you're floating.
That's different. That is simulated skydiving, which is there are rooms all over the place. That's something new they came up with, which is you can blow air from a giant fan underneath, and you can pretend that you're skydiving. Which is skydiving, you know, you're just falling, but the air, you can keep a person hovering. The only place to even simulate what they call gravity, we'll get into that in a second, is something
I know
called...
you think it's a myth, yeah.
No, I don't think it's a myth. No, in fact,
okay, well, gravity's a myth. David Weiss.
No, that's the myth.
I listened to him on my drive up. He used that term. It is a myth. Yes, I promise.
All right. So
I mean, I could be wrong, but
no, it's okay.
I did hear Flat Earthers saying that.
That's the opening line. The myth is that gravity is the only force that's keeping us down. Which he's right in that sense. Now, he and I differ a little bit on exactly what gravity is, but then again, Neil deGrasse Tyson, any scientist, in fact, you can ask any scientist, and they will tell you, it's like, we don't know what gravity is. We can only tell you what it does. We can only tell you the symptoms of gravity. I can tell you this watch falls, right?
Yes.
And that's a symptom of gravity. Can't tell you exactly why. It's just, for science, it's a magical molecular force that magnetically pulls things down to the center of a sphere. For me, it's just a magical molecular force that pulls things straight down. That's the only difference. However, buoyancy is a real thing, which is...
Buoyancy is the ability of something to float. And then density is because you guys say that, and you guys say that it's what do you guys say? It's a force, but it's not actually a force. Density is how much matter sits in a particular space, and buoyancy is an object's tendency to float. That's not a source. That is another way of saying gravity, because those are the two things that explain gravity.
Yeah, but buoyancy only, here's the catch though. Buoyancy only works in a pressurized system. Meaning was, let's get to the vacuum really fast. Okay, so if you want to say pressure difference, that's fine. So let's say,
Oh, I don't care. You can say vacuum. I'm not personally offended.
let's say the room above you, if there's a second floor, you turn that into a vacuum chamber, right?
Okay.
In fact, I could send you videos on this, but let's go with the thought experiment. Okay, vacuum chamber above you, valve. You pull the valve. What happens? It is not like the movies. It is instant. It is violent. The movies just take creative license. But the pressure equalizes instantly. I don't care if the valve is even only a foot wide. It is going to equalize. It's not like, oh my God, we only have 2 minutes of air left. Get the duct tape. It's very, very, very fast. We've had horrible pressure equalization accidents using submersibles where people die. It's a bad way to die. Anyway, the point is that all the air in your room will go upstairs instantly, violently. Why? Because gravity cannot beat the power of, and I'm just going to use vacuum, but it's the pressure differential. It cannot beat it. Question is, when you go outside, why is your atmosphere still here? And your knee-jerk reaction will be gravity, because that is the only thing they tell you. And they say, well, it has to be gravity because we're still alive. It's like really? The same gravity that couldn't hold the air in your room 10 seconds ago, same gravity is supposedly keeping all the atmosphere on right now. And then your wheels will start to spin, and then be like, okay, I'll get one more for you. When our atmosphere ends and space begins, what happens there? And exactly where is that place? Science won't answer it. It's like, well, it's between 600 and 700 miles. Like, really? Have you done any experiments with that? What exactly happens when our atmosphere ends and space begins? Where there's pressure and non-pressure, what happens? Because it absolutely goes against the law of thermodynamics that science created, which is pressure cannot exist next to non-pressure without a barrier. It cannot happen. And yet they won't talk about it. And the only alternative is that it's pressurized. Meaning the only reason is because the atmosphere is still on here because it's enclosed. It's inside a building. It's called air pressure for a reason. And by the way, greenhouse gases, doesn't that make a little more sense if it's an actual greenhouse? It always bugged me, even when I was younger, way before flat Earth. It's like, oh, the fluorocarbon, the ozone, and everything that rises up to the top. I go, what happens then? Well, then it just goes to space. I go, why doesn't everything else go to space? I've even had people say that it's so few particles when it meets space that it's hardly a pull at all. I go, yeah, but space wouldn't discriminate if that was the case. Space doesn't care about if it's just a little bit of particles. It's going after everything that's not nailed down. Anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I spoke to a friend of mine. He's a huge YouTuber. We always text each other and debate each other about silly things. Right. And then I said, oh, hey, look at this, look at this. And he actually had been texting me weeks earlier because I'm his sort of go-to Christian person.
Right.
And he said, what's the firmament? And I said, the firmament, I said, I think that's like a blockage, because at the time I wasn't positive. And I said, I think it's a blockage. I think it's like, I said, when am I echoing?
No, not at all.
Okay, guys, I feel like I'm echoing in the audience. Tell me if I am, but if I'm not good, I'm not echoing to him.
I should hear
it. So that's good. So anyway, when I was explaining to him what the firmament was, I was also trying to explain about Noah's Ark and the flood, and that everything changed because there didn't used to be storms prior to the antediluvian era. There were no storms, there was no flooding, there was no rain. And then he said, what does common sense tell you? He goes, because he was like, why are you interviewing that guy? Like, why? And I'm like, because I want to. Okay, good. Thanks, Australian Protectionist Party. And I said, because I want to. He goes, okay, but before we continue, what do you think? Use your common sense. Do you actually think the earth is flat? And I said, well, no. I said, but that's not because of common sense. I said, common sense, this is a ball. If I stand here on the ball, I'll fall. If I try to stand on top of the ball, then I'll be okay. I said, so for him to try and say to me, use your common sense, technically common sense would dictate that me being on this plate makes more sense than on the ball. I said that to him. I said, common sense tells me that we are on a flat earth, but I believe we're on a spherical plane because all of the algorithms, all of the seasons, all of the turning, all of the stuff about the sun and the moon and with the flat earth how does one explain seeing the moon and the sun at the same time,
Right.
and the seasons and the ocean and the waves and blah 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 blah? Like I said, because of that, I believe in a spherical Earth, but not because of common sense, because common sense does not dictate that. I don't know if he's watching today, but yeah.
And you're right in that regards. My response is George
Yes,
Orwell.
please respond.
Yeah, by the way, I sent you a couple more pictures
Emails?
that I want you to
Okay.
get in email. So
Okay.
George Orwell.
Yes, I know who that is. Yeah.
Of course you do.
I
wrote
know. I'm smarter than I look.
But for your audience, he wrote 1984, a book which gets more relevant with every year.
Okay. Yes, it really
especially this year and last year. He said, it was an interesting, he was not a flat earther, but he wrote something in 1946, I believe, where he said that, it was interesting. He was talking about how people just believe whatever science says. And he said that if you went to anyone on the street and asked them how they know the earth is a globe, everyone's knee-jerk response would be, well, what are you talking about? It isn't. We know it's a globe. Everybody knows it's a globe. We know it's a globe. It's like, really?
Yeah.
How do you know? And then people start, and he goes, and if you push them, they'll start to get upset. And what he was saying was nobody, and he was ahead of his time, obviously. How did everybody in the world know it was a globe in 1946 if NASA wasn't even founded until 1958? It wasn't because they knew, it was because they were told. Meaning there was no objective truth. It was that they were just told. They were told, and their fathers were told, going back generations. So, by the way, don't feel bad. Anyone that's listening, it's like, no. You were born into this. Everyone, your grandfather, going all the way back to past your family tree, was told at least 500 years ago that it was a globe. So what if it wasn't? And then they found out after teaching that for so long. Would they tell people? God, no. I wouldn't tell anybody. Why would they? Real quick, the slides I sent you, there's some science stuff real fast.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
The fish, the brown prehistoric fish, by the way. That's a perfect example. When people say, oh, science is right? Okay, so it says coelacanth, extinct 70 million on it, that little shot. It's a famous prehistoric fish. Coelacanth.
Yeah. I'm aware of that.
Extinct at least 70 million years. Every freaking scientist in the world would have bet the family farm on it that it was extinct for 70 million years. Why? There's the fossil, carbon dating. We absolutely right. Yeah. And then the second shot is called, it's a black and white shot. It says 1938 on it. Right. Okay. That's the British government. That's the first one they found off of South Africa in 1938. And then they just kept finding more and more off of Mozambique and Madagascar. And finally, the blue shot, the blue picture, that's National Geographic swimming with them during a TV special.
Wait, oh yeah, I see. So that's the fish that everyone thought was extinct, and now they're swimming with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, well, don't tell me that science can't get it completely wrong. In this case,
science is wrong all the time.
Yeah,
but that's not my argument against you.
The point is that science, sometimes all of science, because I've heard this, it's like all the scientists can't be wrong. Oh, absolutely, they can be wrong. In this case, they were completely wrong, and not only were they wrong, they make fun of anyone that would go against it. It's like, in fact, that fish, when the early reports came out, and for years it took them, it's like, no, there's no way. Denial is the most predictable human response of all time. And there's like, no, it cannot be real. And then finally they had to cave in and they had to readjust and completely backpedal. I said, well, it's a living fossil. And so wait, you said, why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up
because science is wrong sometimes.
Here's a perfect example. You've heard of Loch Ness, obviously, the Loch Ness monster, right? Are there dinosaurs still swimming around in some of the lakes in various parts of the world, including the UK? Well, no. Why not?
I was going to say that in the Congo, which is like in the middle of Africa, and Guinea Equatorial, they have stegosauruses that have been undiscovered, but the tribal people eat them.
Yeah.
But that's not what you were going to say. You were going to say something else.
No, it's good enough. Which is because we could have gone there, but the Loch Ness monster is a great one because it was like, oh, it's super famous. The Stegosaurus, though, that's on murals and stuff, and how there are people living with Stegosauruses, can't be. Loch Ness monster is the same thing. It's like, why can't people laugh and they go, "Oh, you believe in the Loch Ness monster?" I go, well, why don't you? Because it's been dead for at least 100 million years. I go, oh, you mean like that fish right there? It's been dead for 100 million years. You were absolutely, completely put it in a certificate you can frame wrong on that fish. And, well, but you're right when it comes to the plesiosaurs or the stegosauruses or any other, science is, especially with cryptozoology or even dinosaurs. They'll use cryptozoology real fast, which is any animal which is supposedly mythical, right? So the giant
Like the Leviathan
was an absolute myth. It's like, nope, it's a myth. It's a fairy tale. It's like unicorn. It's like, nope, there's a giant panda right there. Okay, well, now that's sciences. The giant anaconda, that was a myth too. The giant squid, we still have never officially caught a massive giant squid yet. Why? They're too big, they're too fast. Even our best subs can't grab one of these damn things. The only reason we even know they exist is because we cut open whales and we found the remains of these things inside of whales. I know it's super gross. So
no, it's not gross. It's inhumane to cut open a whale. Sorry, I was reacting
don't get me into started.
I was being a girl. Sorry.
On the inhumanity of men, and women get a pass. Most of the problem in this world are because of men. I'd be the first one to admit that. I'm a student of history. With the exception of, find me a world leader, a female world leader that completely screwed up everything by starting a war. Cleopatra, I suppose she could count, but she was royalty, and Egypt was a whole different animal. But the point was, Mark Antony.
Meghan Markle.
What? Meghan Markle. Yes. No, she couldn't start a war.
That's just the war of the tabloids, really.
Anyway, yeah, there we go. The war of the tabloids.
Let's move on.
So anyway, the point is that science gets things really wrong. So when I sent you a picture, I think it's called 082062. It's a collage of different images. And
hang on. I got it. Yeah.
Every civilization in the world, even the Greeks at some point, drew the same thing when it came to the world. They all drew a circular domed structure because that's what we see. The common sense. It's like when you watch a time-lapse footage, anything online, time-lapse footage of the stars moving. Are the stars moving? Or are we moving?
Well, that's the thing. I remember lying down on the ground as a kid, looking at the stars, and it looks like the heavens are moving. And I was told that that's because we're moving and that it's a perception, but it's the wrong perception.
Exactly. Who told you that, right?
I think it was a teacher.
For the longest time, before science became its own religion, that's how everyone saw. It's like, oh, the stars are moving. We're not doing anything, but then science came like, no, you're moving. I mean, think of and this was the beginning of the documentary, which think of the speeds that science says is happening right now. You are supposedly spinning on that basketball at 1,000 miles an hour, right? That basketball is going around the sun at 60,000 miles an hour. I'm not going to convert it to kilometers for you. I'm American.
That's all right. And then I don't know maths.
That entire solar system is flying sideways through the galaxy at 500,000 miles an hour, and that galaxy is going through the rest of the universe at supposedly 2 or 3 million miles an hour, and you feel absolutely nothing. There is no parallax in the stars. The zodiac never moves. No one talks about it, which is the zodiac. Forget about astrology.
Is that astrology? Okay.
I mean, well, it's so like
that would, I'm in Aries. I'm not superstitious.
It doesn't matter. Some of the cause. We'll just say the Big Dipper, because the Big Dipper is not an astrology.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
The Big Dipper is always the Big Dipper, and you're saying, and even though we're moving all these different directions, right? Parallax means that the close stars parallax. When you're driving down a highway really fast, the telephone poles or whatever are going by really quickly, but the mountains in the background are going by really, really slowly. Why? Because the telephone poles are really close to you and the mountains are really, really far away. Same thing with stars. You've got stars that are 10 light years away, supposedly, and then there's stars that are 10,000 light years away. But
according to
you always see the same freaking stars. It never changes. 2,000 years of the zodiac, and the belt of Orion is still the belt of Orion. And
are you saying that when I've traveled the world, when I traveled from Australia to Colombia, hanging out with my family, that the stars would have been the same, even though I didn't pay attention?
Well, no, not just that. No. Okay.
Because I thought
this is good. This is good, actually. If you're going to go the do the stars.
That's what I thought you meant. I'm sorry.
No. What I'm talking about is when you're looking at the stars, right? The closest star is supposedly 4 light years away. That's pretty close in light years, right? But there's stars that are 50,000 light years away. Well,
Okay.
when you're moving an object, the star that's close to you, you should be able to see some sort of difference. You'll start to see the shifts where the star that's really close to you and the stars are really far away from you. You'll start to see differences, meaning the star should move for you. There should be everything should go out of whack because you're in three-dimensional space. They don't. They never ever change. And science says, well, no, they do, but it's like we're talking about such vast distances you'd never see it. I go, really? In a couple thousand years? Because the zodiac has been around for a long time. The Big Dipper has been around for a long, long time, and nothing has ever changed. That's fine. Either way, but that's another thing your people might say, well, the constellations spin differently in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, right? We all know this, and the stars seem out of place. I go, yeah, fine, multiple projection systems. If you're in a planetarium and the planetarium's big enough, you can't be in two places at once, so you just create. We've been doing this in software for the last 20 years. You just create different projections based on it. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's okay. So I was just
what
reading
else
some
can
comments.
I keep going?
Okay. Yeah. No. So, all right. I have so many questions, just generally, but one of the things that fascinates me, and it's not really, I didn't know this was a flat Earth thing up until recently, but I'm very much interested in Admiral Byrd. I've been interested in him for a couple of years, and so when I interviewed, have you ever heard of Timothy Alberino?
No, but go ahead.
Okay, so he is one of the foremost experts on Nephilim, giants, UFOs, which he thinks is not aliens but like fallen angels and all that kind of stuff. Anyway,
sure.
I interviewed him. I asked him about Admiral Byrd, and his response was that he thinks Admiral Byrd's diary is a fake. It's not really completely genuine. But Admiral Byrd he still agrees that Admiral Byrd would have seen something beyond the ice wall. Now, on the flat Earth model, Antarctica is all the way around, right?
Yes.
Yes. Whereas what Admiral Byrd states, according to what he saw, there's more beyond. So this plate needs to be bigger because there was more waters, there was more green pastures. Yep. You guys don't have that. And according to what he said, what?
No, you're right.
You don't have that. Yeah. So
you're right. The white area should be much, much bigger. Absolutely.
Not that it should be bigger, but it should stop there, and then there should be more ocean again, and then more land, because he saw a mammoth, and he saw these Nordic beings that communicated with him, according to the diary. Anyway, so my point is that I don't really know what my point is, but what do you think about that?
Oh, no, it's perfect. And you're absolutely right. In fact, the only reason we don't put that on this sort of map
it's
because for me, it's like we blow people's minds doing one world at a time. If all of a sudden you say, oh yeah, there's different continents outside of here, unless you've got specifics on what the continents are and the lands that are beyond, well, it's like, yeah, we'll get to it eventually, but we start with this. But you're absolutely right.
But you'll never see it. You'll never see it. But sorry, I was looking, because I am so in this rabbit hole at the moment. I was looking at someone did a video. I think it was your acquaintance David Weiss, who looked at an encyclopedia from 1958, and it was Antarctica, and then they spoke about the wall. They spoke about the dome, the firmament. Whereas now it would never say that because apparently you guys aren't allowed to go to Antarctica, despite the fact that there are plenty of ships and stuff there. But
yeah, Admiral Byrd is, by the way, I'm glad you brought that up. Admiral Byrd is.
Yes, I love that topic.
That's how I got into flat Earth. I didn't 6 years ago. I looked into Admiral Byrd because of the Hollow Earth theory. I thought the Hollow Earth theory was really, really intriguing. And yes, the diary. Oh, sure. Everyone's heard about it, and anyone that's worth their salt is like, oh, I've heard about Admiral Byrd's diary. The diary talks about in 1926 how he supposedly went to the North Pole, in a rickety plane, because really we didn't know anything until we got planes back in the early 20s. And
sure, which is why no one's probably ever been there.
Right. And he goes there supposedly, and it turns into a journey into the center of the earth type scenario, and supposedly that's where he saw the mammoth, but let's get past that. If it's fake, it doesn't really matter.
I reckon there are mammoths. I mean, that we see them in Siberia. They're in blocks of ice. They're going to bring them back.
Well, what scares me about that, not to go off on a side road too far.
Cloning. That's not too far.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
it's
flash
coloring, yeah.
frozen mammoths is what worries me. Is that the mammoths, that they found with partially digested food in their stomach, which meant that the mammoth died super, super quickly from environmental conditions. And
Oh,
it's like, okay, what the hell killed him so fast? It was like a storm of we've never
gotcha.
seen. Anyway, so
Sorry,
what
go ahead. Yeah.
intrigued me about Admiral Byrd was that I would expect that, if the North Pole, if there was all these weird, cool things in the North Pole, he'd just keep going, right? But no, that's where everything turned, and that's where you had to follow the breadcrumbs, where the United States Navy, the United States military reassigned him to Antarctica in 1928, and that's where he spent the rest of his life, just flying planes around Antarctica for 1928, looking for something from 1928 all the way up until his death in 1957. And he just flew and flew and flew and flew back when there was nobody freaking down there. We won't even get into the Operation High Jump thing. Oh, I'm sorry. He took a break for World War II because he was the Admiral in the United States Navy. Intriguing little side fact. Who was the only nation that was down in Antarctica during World War II?
The G's, the Germans.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that true then?
That's absolutely true. Yeah. They were the only.
No. But is it true that AH, that man who led the National Socialists,
right?
Did he do anything there? Did he get past the wall? Like,
Well,
is there any declassified info on that?
That's the big question. They were the only ones that were down there. The story goes is that all we know for sure is that right after the Pearl Harbor surrender terms were done, Admiral Byrd takes a full-blown carrier fleet, right? 13 ships, at least 5,000 men, takes them back down to Antarctica to do something. And it's like, okay, what the hell was he doing? And a lot of people say, well, he was trying to root out the rumors of the last Nazi base, which was supposedly down in Antarctica. And supposedly, if you believe the stories, he was thwarted. Now, the question is, did the Nazis drive them back? And if that was the case, why aren't there Nazis around? Whatever happened down there, and this is 1946.
There were Nordic beings there or something already living there. Nordic beings. My theory is that Adam and Eve, this is my theory, I just made this up, but my theory is that Adam and Eve obviously are the first human beings, and their original condition is perfect because they were the original human beings. They were better than an Olympian, right?
I'll go with that.
And so then they must have had two kids beyond. I mean, obviously they had Seth and Cain, who were the two living ones, and then some daughters and blah, blah, blah. So they had shitloads of kids. Two of them went off and maybe found the ice wall or whatever, and then those two beings are the Nordic beings that he must have run into. The only reason I say that is because the way he described them in the diary was that they were Nordic beings. They were perfect in every way, and I don't believe that there are other types of beings unless it's like angels, demons, blah, blah, blah. Sure. So I feel like it must have been that they were original beings that and back then people used to live till like 900 years of age.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
That's just me. That's just me spitballing.
Yeah,
does that sound like an interesting theory?
No, that's good. I like that theory. So whatever happened, whatever he did down there didn't matter in 1954, because 1954 he goes on television, and because what he would do is he would do expeditions and then go back and do it on television. In 1954, he said he had no worries. It's like, oh no, we're doing we keep going and doing more missions. And that's when he went to Operation Deep Freeze, which is Operation 1955-56. And so did they root out the last Nazis? Well, whatever happened within 10 years from then, it was not even a concern. It wasn't, and he was willing to be public about some other stuff. So it's like, okay, well, the rumor, which I kind of like, was that Nazi Germany asked whoever was down there for asylum, meaning we want to go to the outer markers. We want to go outside the barrier to wherever. And they said, well, and I don't know what's like with you guys with high school dances, but it's like, okay, fine, you can go out there, but you can never come back. Meaning it's like, you get your stamp on your hand. It's like, nope, sorry. I mean, you can't get back into the club if you're out there, and which we never saw him again. But what was interesting was Admiral Byrd goes on television, says, oh yeah, this place is made out of money, and we're gonna be down there for 100 years, and it's gonna be fantastic. In fact, we're gonna be fighting over this thing forever. And then immediately after Operation Deep Freeze, they start putting in place the Antarctic Treaty, which is the only unbroken treaty in the history of the world today.
Yeah, and that I find utterly mysterious.
Yeah. That was the thing for me because I called BS on that. Everybody knows that 9 out of 10 problems in the world are tied to money. We are, especially men and money and power. World runs on greed and power and money. That's it. And Admiral Byrd said, "Oh yeah, the whole place is made out of money," and he had every right to think that we were going to fight over it. And then all of a sudden, they just lock it down and they say, "Yeah, no one can ever go there ever again." It's like,
why do you think that is? Why wouldn't it be great for more continents?
well,
more land? Wouldn't that be like incredible?
I thought of this right away. It's like, okay, so what's the worst that could happen? Again, think of an Illuminati meeting. It's like, should we let people down there? Well, you run into trouble
it's not their
with
job to tell me if I that's ridiculous. So keep going.
Well, let's say you're an oil and gas company. Let's say you're the head of British Petroleum, and it's like you already know that there's tons of resources down there. Why can't you go down there? The reason is because eventually you're going to make a mistake. You're going to have a plane that's going to go off course. It's going to go in a direction the government does not want you to go. Helicopters, whatever. There's going to be places, going to be off limit zones. And I talked about this in the clues, which is it would be too much hassle. Okay, let's say you have a plane go off course and see something they shouldn't. What do? You got to take care of that, right? You got to neutralize that. Well, how many times can you do that before it becomes way too much of a hassle? And plus, you got to figure out who does it. I mean, it'd be really tough to do. I'm telling you this. If I put myself in the government's shoes, that's really tough to do. So some higher up says, yeah, you know what? It's really miserable down there anyway. Let's just lock it down. Let's just seal this baby off. And so they put the treaty in place, and it's miraculous. I send off PDF copies of the treaty. You can get it online, but it says that no corporation from any country in the world, not only can you not own Antarctica in any way, shape, or form, you are not allowed to set up shop there forever. I mean, it's not even up for review until 2041. And this treaty has been around for a long time. And you know about treaties. Treaties are broken. They're snapped in half right and left. This is the only unbroken treaty.
But what about like explorers? Like if someone wanted to go to the Grand Canyon and explore, they're not allowed. Like, why?
Well, you can go there. If you want to spend Australian dollars, I think it'd be 20,000 Australian dollars. Actually, it might be a little cheaper for you guys because you're close by comparison, but in America it'd be like $15,000. You could go out there, right? Take pictures with penguins and go to the Silver Pole. Supposedly the South Pole. By the way, the magnetic South Pole doesn't exist. You can look that up online. It's not even a secret.
Isn't it below us? Isn't it below me?
What, the magnetic South Pole?
The South Pole.
Yeah, should be. But why does the compass not act like it is? Everyone it's just mind-boggling what people miss because we, especially in America, we aren't taught anything. We were taught nothing about engineering or science or physics or chemistry. We're taught none of this crap. So the compass is, remember, it's a two-pole system, right? North and south. Top of the basketball is north, other side is south. Well, the compass will dominate north until you get to the southern part, and then it should dominate south. Never dominate south. I've had one of my guys was an Australian military guy, and he goes, yeah, little secret, never dominate south. The South Pole is completely a myth. It completely does not exist. There's YouTube videos of guys that are asking people that are living in Antarctica. They're all military or military contractors. It's like, what does the compass do? Nothing. Doesn't do a damn thing. Anyway, so yeah, Admiral Byrd, totally fascinating. Why did he die? I think, by the way, he didn't die of natural causes.
You think so they killed him?
Oh God, he wouldn't shut up.
But what about you? No, that's not true. I've seen interviews with him and he doesn't say anything about the Nordic beings. All he says is
you are right. He does not mention the diary, which is why it's a good reason why some people say the diary is fake. However, he was really big. I mean, if the interview where he was talking about Antarctica and the big missions that were coming up, he was real quick. He mentions just haphazardly. It's like, oh yeah, and we're pretty sure there's uranium down there. Well, in 1954, you don't talk about uranium. Uranium's practically classified back then. And he's like, and he even said on camera, he's like, I probably shouldn't have said that. It's like, oh God. I mean, people that are watching that broadcast, it would not, even if I was watching, I'd be like, yeah, we really got to do something about him because he's just a mess. He let the fame get to him. He was a big time explorer, super famous. Everyone loved explorers back then. And he would do these missions and then he'd do a tour. a big, interview tour. Well, that's counterproductive. You can't have your lead guy doing interview tours all the time. He's going to slip up. And
But the
so,
thing is, if that's true, what you're saying is true, why are you still alive? Why is David Weiss still alive? Why aren't you guys why aren't you dead?
because of the credibility issue. Meaning, look, who are we? We're just social media people. Admiral Byrd was the youngest admiral in the United States Navy, highly decorated, highly respected. Be no different than if you had. Okay, I'll give you an example. They're not going to kill me, right? They're not going to kill me, but an astronaut. If you had a retired astronaut, if one of those guys came out, oh yeah, you better believe that. Which is why you psychologically screen every one of them. And by the way, every astronaut, especially on our side, is U.S. military. It's not a secret. They are all high-ranking Air Force guys. In fact, one of the guys I got a chance to talk to, because Piers Morgan, one of your UK guys, he asked me, it's like, are you calling your guy your astronaut a liar? I said, no, he's a soldier. He's a colonel in the United States military, a full bird colonel. Most of them are high-ranking. I go, you don't get to be colonel without being able to follow orders. So these guys aren't going to crack. So killing me, nope. But if somebody in the military, in fact, I did a show where there was a Navy guy. He was a Sparrow missile instructor for 10 years, United States Navy. And when we had him on our show and he was talking about flat Earth, the U.S. Department of Defense were pinging the hell out of our servers, just pinging them, because they were constantly monitoring just in case. Now, they weren't worried about him talking about flat Earth. They were worried about him talking about the freaking missile system. Because all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, and the weakness of the system is, I'm sure we would have been completely blacked out at that point, because there's certain things, you're in the military, you don't get to talk about. But us, nah, we're not really a threat. Not in the grand scheme of things.
Okay. Well, I was speaking to a friend of mine who was a pilot. He told me not to name him. I'm like, relax, dude, I won't name you.
I got pilots.
Well, this pilot said, because I said to him that airplanes only account for a flat Earth when you're piloting. That's what I said to him. And he said, that's wrong. He goes, that's not true. And so what he said was, hang on, give me a second. Let me find what he said to me. There he is. He wrote, give me a second. You probably noticed. No, hang on.
That's fine.
Something about meridian. Give me a second. Why aren't you allowed in it? Hang on. Okay, so I said, how come none of the electronics of a plane count for the curvature of the Earth? That's what has come up in this documentary. He goes, they absolutely do. They are using charts based on a prime meridian Earth. I don't even know what that means, but that's, do you know what that means?
No, most pilots are completely out of the loop. Meaning, some people say, well, does every pilot have to know? No, they do not. As a matter of fact, that I sent you a link to my subject matter list. I had pilots contact me immediately. Everyone from military pilots to civilian pilots. One of my favorite is a female pilot for many years out of KLM who they benched once she said, yeah, she goes, I'm 90% sure the Earth is flat. And they said, you can't fly again until you renounce that. Now, do the pilots know? Are the pilots know? No, they don't.
Well, but he just said that it's because of a meridian.
Yeah, he can say that all he wants. He's going off of instruments. He's going, our instruments say this. It's like, really?
And also, his friend has flown over Antarctica many times. So when flat earthers say that you're not allowed to fly over it,
you're not allowed to fly. I'd love to know his friend. What flight pass? No one's been able to fly.
Well, he wrote, unfortunately, there's no chance you can talk to him because he's an RAAF pilot. Whatever that means.
Okay. So he says he knows a guy. Come on. You got to get your sources a little better than that. He knows a guy in the military that's a British pilot. And this British pilot has flown over Antarctica, but he can't get any confirmation from him that he's flown out over Antarctica. Publicly, I can only quote publicly. Publicly, no one's been able to even say they've flown over Antarctica since the 1970s. They've completely banned flights from Antarctica entirely, supposedly because some flight crashed into a mountain. All the flight paths, oh God, there's a whole other thing.
RAAF, Royal Australian Air Force. Thanks,
Royal
BC.
Australian Air Force, fine. Doesn't really matter. Now again, flying to Antarctica is different from flying over Antarctica. There should be tons of flight paths that are shorter distances to flying over the top of Antarctica. Kind of like we fly supposedly over the top of the North Pole all day long up here. That's just one of the things we do. But flights, especially civilian flights, are not allowed to fly over Antarctica. If you want to land in McMurdo Base and the other stuff, look, there's nothing in Antarctica. People aren't allowed down there. We've got military bases and military sites. It's really like only 5,000 people in the entire continent right now. But as far as your pilot goes, look, I plugged in a subject matter list. I have got a ton of pilots that say the same thing, that say, no, we look out the front and it's absolutely tabletop flat. But we're told since we were kids that it's a globe, so it's got to be a globe. And I go, why don't you tell anybody, right? And it was part of my clues. And the argument was like, who do we tell? If you're a pilot and you think the world's flat, you keep your mouth shut. Who are you going to tell? You're going to go to your company. You're going to go to Delta. You're going to go to United. You're going to go to the FAA. Who are you going to tell? They are so twitchy about pilots. In fact, I said you would be better off as a pilot to tell somebody you were chased by a UFO for 2 hours, because that'll get you benched. If you say you're a flat Earth, you'll go in for psychological screening. Pilot, that was a Steven Spielberg joke, which was every pilot that sees something funny never reports it. Go ahead.
No, that's fair. So I was watching a lot of the flat Earth material.
Yeah.
And one of the points was this guy was saying how there were these Indian women, all Indian pilots, all Indian. It was female, and so that was a big deal. And so they went from San Francisco, I don't know, let's say here, over the North Pole, over Antarctica, to get to India. And so the guy was explaining how on a globe, it doesn't really make sense because it just doesn't. But then on a flat Earth map, it makes more sense, the trip. So you're saying that people don't fly over Antarctica. That pilot of females did, only they did only they did it, and it was with a flat Earth map. They even showed the map that they used in the article, which was which was a shock because it was a flat Earth. Do you know that one?
I do not know the Indian female pilots thing. I have not seen that one. But then again, there's so much content.
It's part of the app. It's part of the Flat Earth app.
Oh, it is part of the Flat Earth. Now I've got to call David, and it's like, what Indian thing are you talking about? He finds new stuff all the time. David's great. But the short version of that is that every flight on a globe doesn't make sense. You're taking these wild, huge arcs, usually up to the northern hemisphere and back down to accomplish something.
But you can see it on your screen, on the chair, on that TV screen. You can see where your plane is and where you are at that point in time.
You can and you can't. Don't forget, I'm not trying to pick, but don't forget the GPS system that puts that thing on the back of your seat on a plane. GPS system is an American military system. We invented it in the 1990s. And so, yes, will it tell you when you're going to your favorite shop? Yes, it'll get you there. Usually it's triangulate. It's not satellite based though. The GPS system is the old LORAN system, LORAN. The LORAN system is the old radar system that we had for years and years. And then at some point, when the whole satellite thing is like, okay, we're just going to put a different sticker on it and link it up to as many towers as we can, ground-based radar, which is why, by the way, when you look at airline travel, when it gets off the coast, right, and a plane is 150 miles or so, give or take, off the coast of any body of land, and there's no other islands around it, that plane will blink off when it comes to latitude and longitude. It'll go into approximated or estimated mode. And it's like, why? It's a 32 satellite blanket system. There's no way you would ever go into that. And it stays gone until it gets to, shortly. Now, they know kind of where they are, but they don't know exactly where they are. They know their bearings. They know their speed. They're just like, oh, just go off in that direction, which is why, I don't know if you're old enough to remember those two planes that went down in the Indian Ocean. 777s, state of the art. And it's like, they still, to this day.
You're talking about Malaysia Airlines?
The what?
Malaysia Airlines?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Malaysian Airlines. It's like, how do you lose 777s? Those are flagships. Those have.
I did find that weird. I'm not going to lie. That was weird to me. Well, a friend of mine
because they didn't know where they were when they went down because they couldn't track them. The people, and the same thing, it's like, oh, it doesn't just happen in the southern hemisphere. There are no islands between California and Hawaii, right? It's California and then Hawaii. It's quite a distance. When you leave California, you're heading to Hawaii, the same thing happens. You go into approximated or estimated mode. The GPS system is a complete sham. It's the old Loran system. They just said, oh, there's satellites.
But it's not a sham when I'm driving my car and I need to get from New South Wales to.
But no, it's not a sham when you're driving a car. But think about when the GPS systems came out. The GPS systems came out when the cell towers went up. That's when everyone, the cell towers started going up, and then slowly but surely cars got the GPS system. And even the GPS systems weren't perfect back then. Now they're a lot better. I've talked to guys in the cell tower industry who that say, oh yeah, we're not bouncing off of satellites. There's no freaking bandwidth coming from those damn things. We're 99, I shouldn't say 99, 98% of the bandwidth of the world. I don't care if it's television or internet or whatever, is undersea fiber optic cables. They are not even shy about it. We have been laying cables forever, and we've just been laying them on the same route. And that's how you get most of your information. Even what we're talking through right now, we're not talking through satellites. We're talking through fiber optics. It just say they're satellites. That's
okay. A friend of mine wants me to ask you where the sun goes at night.
Dun, dun, dun. And by the way, that's also in the app. And I'm so glad that the David Weiss app that you mentioned it. David Weiss has some wonderful things on this.
I couldn't find anything on YouTube on my own, so I got the app so I could properly research.
Yeah,
and now I'm in the rabbit hole. But it was easier to find because all of the videos on YouTube that I could find on Flat Earth are all the good ones, or the ones that give you guys credibility. They're all unlisted.
Yeah.
So it's only through the app that I could do any research and find out what you guys are all about. Yeah.
It's been the Flat Earth Clues are 6 years old now, and back in the day, oh yeah, we were ripping YouTube to shreds. But then the big channels got involved.
Oh, I know.
And as you know, they got more and more because every big channel. Look up. You want to have some fun? Type in PewDiePie Flat Earth. Guess what you'll see. Me
4.6 million. Oh, you.
Yeah. And he never interviewed me. He just took a clip from
made fun of you.
Thing and made fun of me, which is
the only reason you guys have any validity to my mind would be because Barack Obama mocks you. A lot of these bigger tech people try to censor you so much.
Yeah. That
in itself can be considered a form of validity because of that. And also
worry about us if we're not a threat. Yeah.
Exactly. No. That's where you do kind of have me. And also, I think Hillary Clinton in one of the videos was talking about the firmament, saying we're going to get past the lower Earth orbit and we're going to shoot through. So you were going to answer the question about the sun and the moon, but go ahead, do that first, and then we'll talk about Hillary Clinton talking about the firmament.
Okay, the sun does it set? No, it doesn't. It just goes off into the distance. And we've proven this time and time again. It's like, okay, why hasn't anyone noticed ever? We could see the sun setting off in the distance, right? We've seen it for thousands of years. And, well, you did and you didn't. God built this and God wasn't meaning to trick us. I use the word test. Meaning, I think
tested Moses.
Going to figure this place out. God wasn't going to make it too easy, though. Come on, God's given tests to all sorts of people over the centuries or millennia. So what happens is the sun goes off into the distance, but what's changed is HD technology. Before HD technology, the sun just set. But now when you zoom in, that's where it gets interesting, because what happens is when the sun goes off into the distance, remember this atmosphere has a thickness to it. We're not breathing in nothing. And it's sort of like it is a thin version of water. So over a distance, that thickness gets more and more dense, because some people say, why can't I see Japan from California? Why can't I see Europe from New York? And why can't...
Because of disturbances in the air.
Well, yeah. Well, why can't I see Mount Everest from everywhere? Mount Everest is supposedly the tallest place there is. Why can't you see Mount Everest from everywhere if it's flat Earth? It's like, well, because there's a thickness. No different than when you're underwater. You only have to go 200 feet down and it goes black. Why? Because the sun can't penetrate more than 200 feet down. You lose all color. But even at 100 feet, you're losing almost all your shades. And when you get to 200 feet, it's completely black. What we're breathing in here is just a thin version of that. So when you're looking off into the distance, the sun is basically just, it's going to sound weird, it's basically just fading away into fog. but you have to be able to zoom in with an HD camera with a filter on it to see it. So, but because again, it's so close to the horizon, which is perfectly flat, it flattens out, it gets squished. But if you zoom in close enough and the air conditioner, the light is just about right, you can see it. It just puffs away. It's amazing to watch. David Weiss has some wonderful videos on that.
I've seen it.
Yeah. And it's on, there's videos on my channel as well. I've got a playlist on experiments, what the sun, and again, like for example, when you zoom in to a ship off in the distance, a ship pops back up into frame. Well, you can do the same thing with the sun if you have the right filter. Most people don't shoot the sun though, because it's too damn bright, but you can see it. The sun doesn't set. It never sets. It just goes off in the distance. It's like, well, it's too big. You can remember then the flat earth model, the sun is really, really tiny on here, which is why most of the flat earth models that we draw them back.
Sometimes we can see the sun and the moon at the same time. How does the flat earth model account for that? How does the flat earth model account for the seasons? How does the flat earth model account for the rising tides? How does it
look, you get too many questions. Okay, first one.
You can do what I say now.
That's right. Why are the sun and the moon at the same time? The sun and the moon at the same time would, in fact, it works better on our model than it does in a globe model, because remember, we're talking about a domed structure. So if you go in a planetarium, can you put up the sun and the moon at the same time? Yep, you can. It's that easy. I mean, it's not hard. With seasons, seasons are easy too. In fact, Rob Skiba had a wonderful video on this where he was showing that the sun, it's kind of like I know you're not old enough, it's kind of like a needle on a record player, right?
I know what that is, dude.
Song progresses, what? You're like, what, 22? So the sun progresses like in
10 years older.
And in and out, right? So like a needle on a record player, as the song goes on, it goes in and then it comes out. That's no different than the seasons. The sun takes a different track every day, like they say in the globe. And it could also even change elevations. We're not really sure, but we know it does affect seasons. Oh, by the way, the seasons also aren't exclusive, and this will be tied to the tides, which is the seasons aren't all completely dominated by the sun. Yes, the sun is a massive heat source, right? But it's not the only source that conducts energy in this world. And scientists will agree with you. It's like
so the firmament. Do you think the firmament gives us something? Do you think the firmament is doing something?
It's very, very possible, no question. But the things we know about, the jet stream, which is the upper air stuff that travels very, very fast, that conducts a whole bunch of energy. The biggest transfer of energy, though, is the underwater conveyor system, which is the massive current system that throws, that circulates water around here. No different than the water in an aquarium, as it were. That transfers huge amounts of energy. And then the underground systems, the magma system, all these systems produce massive amounts of energy. And you combine it with God's will, and you can do all sorts of fun stuff when it comes to the seasons. Does the moon affect the tides? No. The moon is just a clock system.
I knew you would say that. Okay.
No, I mean, the moon is, I'm going biblical here. The moon is just a light in the sky. It doesn't do anything when it comes to the tides. Can you predict the tides based on the moon? Yeah. That's the point of having the moon up there, was that you could predict the tides. The tides are completely, the last thing you would do if you're I'm not criticizing God here, because God, I believe that his design, I could not improve on any of his designs. Trust me, and I'm a pretty clever guy. The last thing you would do is turn the moon into a massive directional gravitational field that would affect water. Kind of weird, by the way, that it only affects the oceans, not the lakes. But that's because it's an energy thing. Remember, salt water conducts electricity, fresh water doesn't. So why would gravity, why would the moon and the whole gravitational force not affect lakes if it's not electrical? It's a whole other thing. But the tides are affected from underneath. That's no different than what we do when we build worlds, our simple versions of the worlds, which are simulations. We create something that's called a physics engine, and the physics engine does everything from down below. The physics engine doesn't, gravity is created down below. The tides are created down below. We don't do anything up above. It's too hard to do.
Okay.
God is very efficient in his design. How's that? You create, if you're going to do the tides, the best way to do it is to do it from down below. You affect the water from underneath the water.
Okay. I have so many more questions, but I feel really selfish if I don't ask the audience.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm not gonna be able to sleep for a while anyway.
Oh no. Okay. Well, why would Hillary Clinton say? First of all, actually, I have so many questions. I'm sorry, because I know that you guys claim that NASA has itself said we actually never went on the moon. But you guys don't show us any documents saying that or any proof in that respect. However, in saying that, I have seen other astronauts saying it. I don't know who it was, but it was an old man.
Buzz Aldrin, one of the guys.
Buzz Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin said something like, "We've actually never been on the moon." I saw that. I saw Louis Armstrong. It was Louis. No, not Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong's a singer.
What? Oh yeah, he's a black man too.
Neil Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong. Sorry, I saw Neil Armstrong and 2 other astronauts say that. Oh, you know, I'm thrilled to be part of history, but you know, I can either pretend that it never happened. Right. Or be thrilled that it happened, and then all of them are smirking. Like it's like they're keeping a secret. But then you have people like Neil deGrasse Tyson. What's Tyson?
Let's call him Neil Tyson. Neil Tyson. Okay, so there's a dude that went up into space using like a little self-made rocket ship or something. He went up like that, and it was. And then he said that all he could do was hear himself breathing. And then he commented that he could see the curvature of the Earth. Now, Neil deGrasse Tyson said, "Oh, what a fool! He didn't see." That's okay. Let me describe that really fast. That's that's the Red Bull jump, the Felix Baumgartner Red Bull jump.
Okay.
Which is Red Bull, you know, the energy drink. They sent a guy in a capsule. He wasn't in a rocket. He just went up in a balloon, but that's fine. There's been the rocket stuff is very, very limited as far as people going up in rockets. No military person has gone up at any decent thing. But anyway, he went up in a balloon to 130,000 feet.
Yes.
And he jumped out, right? Because it's like, oh, world record parachute jump. However, all the camera stuff that he was showing this wild, exaggerated curve. And Neil did us a favor. Neil went on stage.
Yes, that's my point.
He goes, that was dishonest. Now, he was defending science, but he helped us in the end, which he said, look, he goes, at 130,000 feet,
it's flat.
Yeah, he goes, it's absolutely flat. But that's interesting because a lot of people that might even be listening, I've had so many people over the last 6 years that have said, no, I've seen, oh my God, if I had a nickel for every comment that said, haven't you ever been in an airplane, you big moron? You say the curvature from an airplane. It's like, oh, do you? I go, well, my challenge is now 4 years old, still stands. I go, if you see a curvature from the airplane, you take a picture of it, you hold a straight edge up to it, you know, on your laptop somewhere.
I've seen this. And
it's like, show me where the curve. If you still think there's a curve there, you send it to me. I will quit Flat Earth tomorrow. It's been 4 years. No one's ever sent me anything. And the reason is because the curve isn't there. It's not, and again, I'm not trying to be mean to anybody. It's not that you don't see the curve. It's that you want to see the curve. There's a big difference, and that's straight up Orwell, which is, and now Neil again did us a favor when he said that it was absolutely flat. He was basically saying, and I've used it against people. He said no civilian has ever seen the curvature, right? And so when people come at me and they say, and I made a video just for that point, I say, fine. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, the most famous scientist in the world, he's wrong. And you're right. And because I've had people say they've seen curvatures from every elevator. I've had 1,000 people say they said, oh, I've seen the curvature from the beach. It's like, really? You sure about that? Again, it's straight up conditioning. We are told there's a curve so many times, starting from when we're kids, that we just buy it. Why wouldn't we? I mean,
that's why when my friend said use your common sense, I'm like, my common sense tells me that I can't stand on a ball.
Well, that's not a bad argument. It's not a bad argument. I mean, but yeah, the 3D ball in space. I mean, I know again, science will come back. It's like, well, no, the gravity's equal on either side, so you wouldn't feel like you were standing on the top. There is no top. If you're a mainstream scientist, they will say that it's everything's the top, and so you never ever feel it. It's like, yeah, sorry. The problem that the globe has is that our community figured out a way to explain the universe that is easier to understand than the solar system.
But all of the algorithms mathematically make sense.
Only because they assumed the algorithms ahead of time. It's like, okay, how do you know the sun is 93 million miles away?
I can't answer that.
Well,
I don't.
exactly. Nobody could. They assumed it. The sticks and shadows argument, which is the sticks and shadows, meaning you have a stick on the ground and you shine a flashlight on it, it'll generate a certain shadow. And you move the flashlight around, the shadow will move. We've seen shadows move. Well, it works on a ball if the sun is 93 million miles away and hundreds of thousands of kilometers wide. Yeah, that works. But it also works if the sun is really, really small and really, really close, like, I don't know, 50 miles wide and 3,000 miles up. By the way, that's what we think it is, which is one of my, let's get into five. I'll give you 5 quick science things that I threw at a physicist over here. All right. Because there was a German television team that asked me, they said, come up with 5 quick science things that a PhD in science can go after. And I go, okay, fine. Real quick. My 5 best points, why the earth is flat. You ready? We'll rip through them. Long distance photography, which we covered. We see things way too far. The curvature of the earth, which we didn't define, is supposedly 8 inches per mile squared, which is 8 inches per mile, which means after a certain period of time, like the basketball, what else? There would be objects on the other side of the hill. I don't care what sort of telescope it is. You should not be able to see them. They're gone. They're on the other side of that ball. Right? But we can see this. We in fact, the only limit is the density of the atmosphere. We can see stuff that's way, way further. Number 2 is gravity versus the vacuum of space, which we talked about. Gravity always will lose to the vacuum of space. If you want to call it pressure differential, that's fine. Third is the eclipse shadow, which ties into what we were just talking about, which is the eclipse shadow is too small, meaning the moon supposedly is 2,000 miles wide. That's what they say it is. But the eclipse shadow that goes along the ground, if you guys ever had an eclipses run across the ground in Australia, I don't know if you have. That's only the blackout zone. It was covered in the documentary, but anyway, the blackout zone where the sun is completely eclipsed is only 70 miles wide. So that's 90 something percent decrease. Why is the shadow so freaking small? And they said, well, because it's condensing like a lens and the shadow is really small. I go, okay, first, we can't replicate that here with anything. When you walk by a wall and the sun's next to you, your shadow doesn't shrink down to the size of an action figure. It's either actual size or long shadows. At the end of the day, your shadow is freaking huge. Never ever gets smaller, only gets bigger. And even if you can convince me, it's like, oh no, it condenses down. I go, wow, good. Why isn't it condensed down with the earth then? Meaning if the earth is in front of the sun and the moon's over here, why don't we see a blackout zone on the moon that's only about 250 miles wide? We only see waxing and waning crescents. We see blood moons. The moon should turn into a giant eyeball. Never ever happens. Fourth would be the moon temperature. Fun one to check out. I'm pretty sure it's on David Weiss's thing. Moon temperature. The moon is cold. And he's like, well, it's colder at night. No, the moon generates a cold light. The moon is completely, and this goes along the biblical side of things, the moon is its own complete entity. The moon doesn't reflect sunlight. The moon generates its own light. And it's a cold laser light. And you're going, oh, you can't prove that. It's like, oh, yeah, we can. We've got point and click. Do I have mine lying around here? Point and click infrared thermometers. I don't have mine in front of me. You can buy them at hardware stores. They usually use them to test engine blocks, point and click thermometers. You take something in the moonlight and the moon shade, right? So again, I won't convert it to Celsius for you, but let's say 80 degrees in the sunlight, but it's 70 degrees in the shade. We all know this. It's cooler in the shade, right? Not in the moonlight. In the moonlight, it's the exact opposite, meaning it's actually colder it's actually warmer in the shade than it is in the moonlight. And it's like, well, no, it's because it was the sun had lit it up during the day. It's like, no, you can do any test you want. We've done copper strips. We've done infrared. We've done the whole 9 yards. It's up to 13 degrees Fahrenheit warmer in moonshade than in the moonlight. The moon is cooling things down. And I didn't even know this was a technology until, in fact, I was in this thing for like a year before somebody brought this up to me. And they say, and basically it's something you can do at university. You can change the frequency of a laser and actually use it to cool down things. And now it's in certain health products, certain beauty things. It's a cooling laser light. It's super weird.
Okay, but sorry, number 5.
Well, number 5, last but not least, the Van Allen radiation belt question. Simple question. It doesn't matter if you know science or not. NASA announced in 1958 that there's huge bands of radiation around that basketball. called the Van Allen radiation belts. Super, super deadly. No one should ever go there, ever, ever, ever.
Around the Earth?
Yeah. 60,000 miles thick and covers everything, right? Except for maybe donut holes in the top and the bottom, supposedly. Okay. Van Allen radiation belts, are they deadly? Yes or no? Simple question. But it's a trap, because if you say yes, then I go, okay. So no, you say no. Let's say no, they're no. Say yes, they are deadly. If they're deadly, then how? There's only three things that can shield you from radiation. One, when you go to the dentist's office, they put that lead thing on you. Lead.
Yeah, I do it. I put it on them all the time.
Yeah. Lead will stop radiation. Gold will, but it's really, really expensive. Gold is actually twice as dense as lead, but nobody knows that because who has that much gold? And a whole bunch of water, which they use in power plants. Water will stop it. But all these things are really, really big and heavy. What did the Americans use for shielding when they went to the moon and back multiple times in the 60s and 70s?
I have no idea.
Nothing. They used aluminum and plastic. Neither of those things stopped radiation at the slightest. Nobody died. Nobody got radiation poisoning. Nobody got cancer. There's still 5 of these guys limping around today. Every one of them died of natural causes. It's like, how'd they do it? And then you come back and say, well, it's not dangerous. I go, oh, okay. So look up a little video called Orion Trial by Fire, made by NASA, where they talk. It's on the NASA.gov website, where they talk about how they can't test the Mars capsules because they haven't figured out how to solve the Earth radiation problem. And they're very specific about it. They say, oh yeah, the Van Allen radiation belts, super, super deadly. We can't send people up there yet because we haven't solved the problem. It's like, what are you talking about? You solved it perfectly in the 60s. You never had a problem with it using old technology. What's your problem now? What you forget how to do it? So between those 5 questions, those are simple, right? Super questions, right? Send them to the physicist out in Georgetown. Folded. That was it. He said, yeah, we're not doing this. And that was it. And it was his idea. He was the one that set up the interview. I was called in just the last minute, and I came up with these questions, and that was it. Now, to be fair, a lot of scientists, their tunnel vision, that they can only speak to their specific discipline. But he should have been at least go after one of these, and he didn't. He said, nope, not gonna touch it. In fact, most scientists don't even know what to do with the whole concept, because again, it's tough. Most people, if they have a master's degree or higher in any sort of physical science, won't even address it. It's like, well, no, it's beneath them, which is like, all right.
Okay, I'm gonna stop asking questions, and actually, I still want to keep asking questions because I feel like I have so many. But someone wanted me to ask you about the laser test. Hang on.
Ah, yes, the laser test from the documentary. I know
something about water. Hang on. What did he write?
Water or laser?
No, he said both, I think. Ask him about the lake laser test.
Lake laser test. Oh, Lake Beltran, maybe? We're not going to do the laser test then from the documentary. If somebody asks, that's fine. So we've done a bunch of lake laser tests. David's got them on his app. I've got them on a playlist. The biggest one we did was in Lake Beltran in Hungary. We actually had the Guinness Book of World Records there with us. I did not go because I was not going to freeze my butt off in a frozen lake. It was frozen.
You should have gone. I'd never be able to travel again.
The what?
You should have gone, because now nobody's ever going to be able to ever travel again. Sorry, keep going.
Thank you, by the way, for mentioning that, because that made me sad when I figured this out. I did a rant on that. I got my first guideline strike yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago, because I talked badly about the vaccine and YouTube. And remember, I've been doing this for 6 years. I got 1,500 videos on my channel, never gotten a guideline strike. And they're like, and the new thing is like, yeah, you cannot, what?
I have. I've got a guideline.
Yeah. Well, you've seen the message. You cannot contradict the World Health Organization on YouTube. And it's like, you bastards. Anyway,
the laser lake test.
We shot a laser. We've done laser tests for a while. We don't even really do them anymore, but we bought some military grade lasers because most people don't know the pen lasers, they start spreading out over a certain distance, 2 feet per mile, to where, and that was one of Jaren's problems. We'll get into that later. But yeah, we shot lasers over frozen lakes. You don't even have to shoot lasers now. But the reason why we do it is because, well, lasers are absolutely straight. They shoot straight. So, but you have to have a guy on the other side that's like, you have to line it up. You got to make sure you blind him with this laser. And it takes it's harder to do than you might think, because you have to get some precision stuff to line it up. but a laser. But the military's been doing it for years. In fact, my favorite is the missile guy. He was the first guy to say, yeah, our missile systems, we use a 2-degree beam radar, which is very similar to a laser. We're shooting at 50 nautical miles. When we did Lake Balaton, we were shooting at 40 kilometers, I think. And yeah, we lined it up perfectly. In fact, we were doing laser tests and things like that for so often, we finally figured out a way to do it during the daytime, because you can only do laser tests at night. And because you have to compete with the sun. And somebody in California came up with this brilliant idea. It's like, no, why don't you just use mirrors during the daytime? It's like, what? That's awesome. And so they did. They bought like a $10 mirror at Target and went down to over the side of, this lake in the freaking desert, and was reflecting sunlight at back at the thing. It was perfect. It was the ultimate laser. Yeah, we've never had a test fail in that regard. Never.
Okay.
The one that was in the documentary, you got to remember, they hated us. The one that was in the documentary, the Jaron didn't have line of sight. That's completely on him. Totally his fault. Again, if anything, the system was the one that got him, because he went to Google Earth and just assumed this piece of land that he was shooting over was flat. And then he brings in the film team. Never tested it out for himself. Never even bought. In fact, we didn't even know,
because he was convinced, I suppose, of his
oh
own
yeah,
argument.
he's like, well, it's got to be flat, right? The Google Earth says it's flat, and he goes down there 2 months later and does a live stream. It's like, oh, he goes, I'm sorry, we didn't have line of sight. It's like, dude, why'd you bring the freaking film team out there, for the documentary, if you didn't know if it was absolutely flat? Live and learn. He's like, our advice to everybody is like, check your site out first before you bring in a news team or whoever it is, because if you're wrong, they're gonna go, look, which is how the movie ended. They ended the movie with Jaron's test, but it played well, and it still exposed a lot of people to it, so I'm not going to regret it. I probably wouldn't have changed the documentary with that ending. I would have changed it probably a little bit, but it made the audience feel safe because it freaked people out. Most people that watched it, because I sat in studio audiences, most people the first 20, 30 minutes didn't even think it was real, meaning they thought it was a mockumentary, a piece of docufiction. They didn't. They thought it was like a parody.
Those are hard. Those are easy to fall for. I was watching one about mermaids, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, mermaids are real!" And then I'm like, "No wait." This
was reverse of that, where everyone thought, "Oh, okay, it's not real," and then all of a sudden, I sat next to people, and they're like, "Wait a minute, there's something really scary on the internet, and I don't know anything about it." And it's like, because there's all these different celebrities, that were into this, and anyway. Keep going.
Okay, so this is a question from a friend of mine who also happens to be a viewer. Hey, Mark, when did you figure out that the moon landing was fake?
In America,
this is a running theory, even with non-flat.
Yeah. In America,
many non-flat earthers are like, yeah, it was staged.
Yeah, we were questioning the moon theory almost immediately after we stopped going to the moon, which was in 1972. The problem was there was no internet, and the only way for people to share ideas was to go to like conferences. And these were, usually, I hate to say this because it sounds so weird, usually you had to share information at like UFO conferences. Oh. Because anyone that believed in UFOs, well, you probably didn't believe the moon landing were real, or you thought it was a secret space program or whatever. So we were questioning it for a long time. The big reason is because production mistakes, and you'll understand what I mean. So there are entire websites and huge channels dedicated to movie mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. People that in productions. I mean, even Lord of the Rings, the very first Lord of the Rings movie, there was a car driving in the background when the guys were leaving the Shire because they didn't catch it in editing. Things get missed in movie mistakes all the time, or in movies all the time. Why? Because you shoot things out of sequence to save money. We're going to shoot all the desert scenes. We're going to shoot all the car chase scenes. We're going to shoot all these things. And it's out of sequence. It's not chronological.
Yeah, and then they have to edit it and put it all together.
Yeah, and then you have to fill in. You got to bring people in for reshoots. It's like, why did the actor look like he gained 10 pounds since that last scene? It's like, because he gained 10 pounds. He's shooting it 6 months later, right? After his physical trainer was gone. So what was happening was the nerds, when the internet started firing up, the nerds were breaking it down. I'm a big nerd. We're breaking it down. They were looking at stuff like that picture I showed you. They're staring at things. They're going, hey, wait a minute. Beforehand, back in the 60s and 70s, all we had was magazines. And it was like, no one cared. It's like, oh, look, America's and the moon. But when you started analyzing the shots, things didn't add up. You started seeing more and more plot holes. And that's one of my big things. I am a huge believer in good writing. It's like if a movie makes mistakes too many times, it's the suspension of disbelief. It's a human condition. We want to believe things. It's why you cry at the movies. Right? It's why you're crying. You know who the actor is. You know the production company. You're sitting next to people. You know it's a movie. Why are you crying? Suspension of disbelief. You are invested in the story. Hell, there's people that cry in books all the time. It's like reading. It's like, why are you crying reading a book? It's because you're invested in the story. If there's too many things that lose you, you've probably done it. You've watched a movie and it's like, yeah, I'm not into this. Click, it's gone. It's like, yeah, it's not. Well, that shouldn't happen in real life, and it certainly shouldn't happen in the news. That's what we're talking about here. Meaning, we've now beforehand the people that were analyzing movies and books and all this other stuff, they started analyzing historical documents. And if things don't start matching up, that's when you run into problems. The moon has been an issue. We just keep finding more and more stuff. And once social media came out, oh yeah, I mean, most Americans have problems with the moon missions. It was.
I've seen footage on TV shows, and it's all acted. But people were sitting in front of their TV during this moon landing, crying like, "Oh my gosh, look what humanity's done." It doesn't seem like people had a problem with it. It seems like they were like, "Hooray, we're so great! Humanity's like what?"
Well, yeah, in the late 60s and early 70s, sure. But again, by the late 70s, the reason why the government said the reason why they closed down the program was because they said that people were getting bored.
They destroyed it. Yeah, they destroyed the technology, and it'll be too difficult to rebuild. I saw all of the NASA people saying that, and I did find that unusual.
Yeah, and so they shut it down, and that was brilliant. And which was they shut it down in 1972.
But China's been on the moon since then, and India, and I think Australia. I don't remember.
No. The only 6 countries that you could look this up. Countries with launch capability: United States, Soviet Union, China, India, Europe, and Japan. Right.
Oh, okay.
Well, but that's weird because didn't Israel crash land something a year and a half ago on the moon? It's like, why weren't they on the launch list? It's like, okay. But the big thing was for me, and that's part of the clues was, and I thought it was a complete just anomaly, was there was no pictures taken of the Earth from space from 1972, which is the official blue marble shot. You can look it up. 1972. There was only one shot taken.
I'm not. I agree. Where I agree with flat earthers is the photos. I know they're not real photos.
No,
I know
they're not real photos. They never.
I know that. But what you don't take into account as a flat earther is that prior, before computers ever existed, there have been photos of the moon, of the Earth. Prior to 1968, I think. No. Hang on, what does my research?
Couldn't have been the only shot. No. I got to correct you here.
I'm going. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm telling you that I was watching a bunch of videos the last 3 days that are pro your argument and against your argument. And one of the people said that that there are photos of the moon prior to computers.
Photos of the Earth.
Of the Earth, sorry. Yes.
They would be wrong in the sense. Now, if they're going to pick and say, well, those partial photos, it's like, all right, fine. You want to say it's partial photos, but the first full disc photo of the Earth.
I know that's doctored. I'm not. That's fine with me.
Well, yeah, but the only one they released was 1972 from Apollo 17, and I know this for an absolute fact for a couple of reasons. One was back in 2000 when I was running a tech support thing. I wanted to put different shots of the Earth. I thought it'd be kind of iconic. Again,
yes, I've seen that. Yeah, they're all different, and all the dimensions of the land are different.
But when I did a search back back in 2000, there was literally only one picture of the Earth. On every search, it was the same image. It was the same blue marble shot. And then the second blue marble shot wasn't even taken until 2015, summer of 2015, after we started ramping up. And you're saying, well, how do you know that? I know that because Obama was the one that announced it. Second blue marble shot of the Earth. And it was announced it was Scott Kelly, the astronaut, supposedly was the one that did the press release on it. It's like, wait, you guys went 43 years without another blue marble shot? All these missions, all these probes, no one took a second blue marble shot. And look, I'll give you the quote. I mean, you can look it up, but it is absolute historical fact. Al Gore the vice president of the United States here. He, at one point when he was in office, he wanted a giant globe on his wall. And he said this during the Inconvenient Truth 2, the sequel to it. And he calls up NASA and he says, hey, I know you got this blue marble shot from 1972. You got anything updated you can give me? It's like, yeah, no, we don't have anything. And that inspired him so much that he tried to create this satellite program till we get another shot of the Earth. And of course, it was delayed, and then he, eventually left office, and that program was scrapped.
Doesn't the satellite go against your argument? There are I've seen. I know you're going to say it's a green screen, maybe, but I've seen there aren't there like satellites that sometimes astronauts need to fix, like the Hubble telescope, or I don't know, no, not a telescope. So that was a stupid thing to say.
No, astronauts don't fix satellites.
Or engineers then from MIT or something.
Nobody goes up and touches satellites ever.
Something is floating, an orb. I don't know what the word is.
Are there things up there? Yes.
Something? Yeah, I don't speak science. I'm sorry.
And no, it's all right. Do satellites exist? Yeah. How do they get up there? That's the bigger question. You can look it up. This is not a big secret. NASA is the biggest.
They hang from the firmament.
Well, no. NASA is the biggest consumer of helium in the world. Most people don't know that. They have the majority stock in all helium production. They can bring, and they're not shy about telling people. It's like you can launch a satellite from the ground, usually in your neck of the woods. In fact, there was a wonderful story. I think it was shot in Australia. You can go up to 4 tons, which is 8,000 pounds. I'm not going to do kilos for you.
You're fine.
So it's like, if you can launch 8,000 pounds on a balloon, then why would you ever put anything on a rocket? Generally, you don't. Sorry. So no, do satellites exist? Yes. What are they most of the time? Probably suspended by balloons. No doubt in my mind. I know it sounds weird, but you can look
at it. I'll
send you videos on it. It is bizarre. I had the same reaction you did. It's like, no. It's like, yeah. When you look at it, they've been doing it since 1958, literally since NASA was founded. You can send up any package you want up to 4 tons on balloons. So it's like, okay, well, why would you send anything on rockets? Like, you wouldn't. You fire rockets off to bilk whoever it is, but you don't have to put a payload on there. It's absolutely amazing. It took and you're saying it's too big. It's too big of a lie. NASA couldn't fake everything.
It is. Yeah.
Think how small though they started. NASA, when they started out, was a very small organization. With the old saying, "What a tangled web we weave." It just got bigger and bigger and bigger to where now we're paying them $28 million a day.
Aren't they lucky?
Which is an amazing amount of money considering what they're not doing. But and what have they yet to show for it? No moon bases, no Mars missions, no nothing. I mean, the space shuttle program that's been scrapped for 15 years. Most people don't even know space shuttles are not even a thing anymore. It's like, oh yeah, we had space shuttles. No, you don't. You scrapped that. And Russians don't have. By the way, on a different thing, why did the Russians quit? Remember this?
I don't know.
Nobody knows.
The Russians were the first in space, even the low orbiting area, at least.
Russia was supposedly.
You can't deny that.
I can tell you exactly why. They were crushing us. They were absolutely crushing. You can look up the Space Race magazine covers. We were like toe to toe, Russians versus Americans.
I know. I remember. I've researched this when I was not red-pilled on anything.
Yeah, that was a thing. Right?
There was a Cold War.
And then we get to the moon, and they quit. It's like, in the history of sports, I've never heard of such a thing. It's like the first guy crosses the finish line, and everybody just walks off the course. Not only did they quit, but they dismantled pretty much everything. There was no Soviet Union space thing afterwards.
But that's not true. I was watching the Eurovision Song Contest, which is something Australians love to watch. I don't know if Americans know what the Eurovision Song Contest is. And they announced the winner in the space shuttle, which is a bit retarded. I don't really understand. Like, I guess they were trying to go. I guess it was held in Russia, this particular song contest. And they were in the space shuttle saying, and the winner is blah, blah, blah. And was that acted? Were they in
Wait. Was it an American space shuttle or Russian space shuttle?
No, Russian.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to see that footage because the Russians had a space shuttle
program. I'll see if I can find the year that they hosted Just some
Please send it
context.
to me when you get a chance, because I'd love to use it, because
Okay.
that's one of those other things. The Russians had a space shuttle program that we never talked about. Okay, you want to know why the space race completely imploded, and we never talk about the right. We
Because
only talk about the
Americans maybe behind the scenes stopped them, I assume.
well,
Is that
it's
is
not,
that what
it's
you're
not just
alluding
that. It
to?
was more of an agreement. The Russians, the Americans, at the highest levels, not really enemies.
They don't really like each other though.
Well, no, but that's the lower levels. The lower levels, oh yeah,
Okay.
we teach our troops, we have the communist threat. We're two completely different systems. But at the highest levels, there are certain secrets you have to join forces with. And you got to
Oh
remember
yes.
that we were
Okay.
landing supposedly our space capsules in Russian territory for years recently. It's like, why aren't you landing them in the water? Can't land them in the water anymore. There's too many yachts out there. You can't take any chances. You don't want, not that you're going to hit them, but you don't want people to see what's really coming down. Here, let's do the space race really quick. So imagine this.
Please.
You cancel. Here's how you cancel the space race. You ready? The Americans, any movie studio will tell you this, and because everything in Hollywood is done in pairs, so you have two competing studios, right? Remember MovieMistakes.com, right? The chances, multiply that by multiple studios, and you'll never ever get them right. So what I'm saying is the Americans can't fake the moon, and the Russians can't fake the moon simultaneously, because if they do, you're going to have nerds that are going to be like, hey, why does the Russian footage look so much more brown? Why are their rocks different? Hey, wait, why do they have stars? And that's all it takes. If the Russian footage differs in any way from the American footage, the whole thing freaking falls apart. And they knew this. They're like, yeah, there's no way we can shoot in Arizona and they can shoot in Moscow. It's never going to match up. Never, ever going to happen.
So you're saying that the Russians faked their first man, Yuri Gagarin?
Everything was faked. No one's done anything. The whole thing was fake. And it was fake for a very, very specific reason, though, which is people say, well, why would you fake it? It's like, okay, if you don't fake it, eventually private companies are going to get involved. And the last thing you want to do is have some private, because remember, over here on our side, NASA is only the organization. All the parts are made by military contractors like Boeing and McDonnell Douglas and Raytheon and all these guys. You don't want those private contractors. There's the guys with all the tech. You don't want them trying to do their own space program. You really, really don't. Because if something goes wrong, like, I don't know, they run into a firmament, then the gig's up, right? So you militarize space as fast as you can.
Firmament.
There you go, firmament. And you militarize space as fast as you can, and you keep it militarized for as long as you can. You say, well, Elon Musk and Tesla and SpaceX and Google, Blue Horizons and Virgin Galactic down in your neck of the woods, right? It's like, yeah, what have they done exactly? The only one that's doing supposedly anything in SpaceX, and they launch from American military bases, and they are completely compromised. That Roadster in space, that red convertible in space, oh God, I did like 2 or 3 weeks just on that one alone, because it made no sense. Absolutely made no sense. That car should have been, if it was actually space, would have been shredded by the heat differences, by the cooling temperature, by the vacuum. That thing should have been in pieces, should have been shredded. And yet they had 3 HD cameras on it. It was absolutely perfect. And by the way, don't think it was an accident that all the logos were left off it. Two companies, Tesla and SpaceX, one private, one public. And there's no logos on that car whatsoever. Even the mannequin didn't have a logo on it. It's like, why? Just in case something went wrong. They like distance yourself. By the way, Tesla, the car, right? Supposedly the only car in the history of car companies to have a car in space. No Tesla dealership has that thing on their, that thing should be on their wall at all times in the background. When you're at that dealership, there should be Tesla in space. Never happened. No commercials, no advertising campaigns. It was like they were being really delicate about it. It's like, is anyone buying this? And social media wasn't buying it. So they decided, yeah, let's just kind of push that off to the side. We'll let people think it was a thing, but we're not going to advertise. It's brilliant.
Okay. Someone wrote, what's the story behind your sports bet ad? I don't know what they're talking about.
Oh yeah, I did a TV commercial down in Melbourne for you guys.
Oh, you did? Okay,
yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
I didn't know.
I did sports bet, if you know who they are. I didn't realize I didn't realize that gambling was
part of TVA.
Yeah, gambling's totally legal down. Sports betting is completely legal in Australia. I did not know that.
Yeah, it is. That's normal for us.
It is not here. It is only legal in certain states, and certain states, very limited.
Okay.
And
Are
so
there any other questions?
they called me up and said, "Hey, we're doing a campaign called Foolproof." And basically it's like if you are nutty enough to look at this particular topic, then you're nutty enough, then you definitely can get our app, right? And I fly down there. It was like really short notice. They said, "Hey, can you be on? We'll send tickets. Come to Melbourne." It's like, okay. Came down in the winter. It was cold, breezy, and
Sorry.
I was there for like 2 days or 3 days. No, I was there for an entire week. But I had to stay in my hotel for a couple days just in case of reshoots, and we didn't have to do them. So I just drank and ate and watched TV. So the commercial was you can watch it if you want. I'll send it to you if you want. It's I've got a I'll shoot it to you after I'm done.
So wait, an Australian mainstream organization hired a lunatic flat earther to do a commercial. Really?
Yeah. Billboards, buses, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it was. I
I swear I didn't know.
I was on TV. People didn't even know. People from Australia were contacting me. It was like, "Why is Mark Sargent on Australian television?" I'm going. So here's the deal.
You're an advocate for gambling. Great.
Here's where it gets weird. Where it gets weird is I was looking at the call sheet. If you know anything about the call sheet, who's on there, and I was the only one listed without an agent. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on exactly? And I go, like you got they had some American beauty queens that were walking by, and I go, how'd you get Miss South Carolina? It's like, no, mate. She's Australian. It's like, what? I go, they're all Australian. And I go, yeah, all these are Australian actors, all of them. And I go, except me. And they go, yeah. And I go, why am I here? You could have faked a flat earther and done it in 2 seconds. You faked like 3 or 4 different Americans. Why didn't you fake me? Why'd you pay to have me come down? And why not? I mean, seriously, it makes sense. Production standpoint, you didn't need me. Yeah. And they said, well, one of the producers wanted you down here. Turns out there was people in sports bet that were flat earthers.
And that's funny as.
Yeah. And they didn't want to be named. I still don't remember their names. And they came over really quiet about it. It's like, yeah. I go, are you the reason I'm here? I go, yeah. Shake hands. And then they went off and did their thing, and we shot the commercial, and I left. There's
plenty of flat earthers. They're just afraid to come out.
There 90% of the flat earthers that are out there won't come out because they're scared. I have talked to so many people. I have family members that won't come out. The celebrities won't come out mostly because of what happened to the celebrities that did come out. Like Kyrie Irving, basketball player, he came out, was just crucified. Shaquille O'Neal, he lasted 10 days. Freddie Flintoff, cricket guy out of UK, he got just black.
Oh, I know who that is. Yes, I remember him from
front page headlines. I mean, you do it, you're going to get in trouble. I mean, I have talked to celebrities that have said, yeah.
I'm just speaking to you. I'm not a flat earth. I haven't said anything yet, whether I believe it or not. I feel like there are arguments very much for it, and there are arguments very much against it. And me just interviewing you was like I'm interviewing a man who hurts children or something. It was like,
hell, you're gonna go down that road. The reason, by the way, the documentary
behind my reputation will be ruined for talking to you, and I'm like, it won't be free speech absolutist.
It won't be ruined. There are bigger groups than you that have caught more backlash. CBS, for example, big American network.
Yes, well, I saw that. I swear I saw you. That's how I knew to email you. I'm like, I saw you on CBS.
Well, yeah. Well, I was on CBS and some other things, but we did a CBS piece down in Los Angeles, and it went up on YouTube, and it was tracking. It was the #1 video on YouTube for a while on the flat earth section, and then all of a sudden it was gone. And the reason was because they caught backlash from the viewers. The viewers are like, how dare you? How dare you run a flat earth segment on this network? And the peer pressure, as you know, cancel culture, it's a real thing out there, but this was pre-cancel culture.
Yeah.
Anyway, celebrities, there's all sorts of celebrities, the people that will not come out. That, I mean, I've had subject matter experts, military guys that have said, yeah, I just can't take the risk. I mean, hell, I'll tell you how bad it was. Alex Jones, right? the American conspiracy guy, Alex Jones, he contacted me almost immediately, his producers, and said, how long can we do a show about flat Earth without actually saying flat Earth?
Yeah.
I said, maybe 10 minutes. They said, yeah, we can't take the chance. It took 3 years later, and then David Weiss got on the show, only because Eddie Bravo, a famous, UFC fighter, judo guy, only because he was a big champion of flat Earth. And he got David on the show. I was like, yeah, it's really weird. I mean, hell,
you're as bad as a murderer.
The Australian Open that just happened, right?
Yeah.
Who's if you follow tennis at all, Novak Djokovic.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of ours. And,
there you go.
Yeah, but he only released a standing image.
And Bill Burr.
The what?
Bill Burr.
No, he supports
you guys. Well, at least he's as nice to you guys as I'm being, at least.
Well, no. Bill Burr started out, he's a comedian. He pokes fun at people, and he tore into us for a while. He's softened recently, but then again, he's kind of an alternative thinker, which I like. He's one of my top 5 comedians of all time, so I'm not going to say anything bad about Bill Burr.
Yeah. Okay, so Australian Protectionist Party. If the Earth is flat, how thick is it? And what's on the other side?
Ding, ding, ding. Great question. Which I throw back at science. It's like, how thick is this damn thing anyway, right? Well, we usually throw that back at science. It's like, how thick is the Earth according to science? Science will say that Earth is 4,000 miles down to the core, and whatever that is in kilometers. Yeah. And really, what's the deepest hole ever drilled? Is it 2,000? miles? Is it 1,000 miles? Is it 100? Is it 10? Deepest hole is 12 kilometers ever drilled. And the Russians and the Germans tried for years to get past it, and they finally gave up. So we don't know how deep it is. I mean, for me, it's got to be at least 12 kilometers deep, obviously. But could it be 50 kilometers? I don't know. Because science, the bigger question is, why does science showing this cross section of Earth, if they have no idea what's inside it? No one ever questions, like, why is there this perfect band of red and orange and yellow and white? Why are those perfectly 1,000 miles thick? It's like, is that really how it is? Small print, science will say, yeah, we have no idea what's down there. It's like, well, then why do you say you know what's down there? Well, it's because we're science. Science will never put a big question mark in the middle of anything in a science book. They will always say, this is what it is. It used to be, this is what our best guess is. They don't say guess anymore.
No, they don't.
It's like, great, fantastic.
My understanding of science, and this is how I understand it, and I could be wrong, and you can correct me, and a person who has a degree in science can correct me.
Yeah.
Science today is coming up with a theory, a math theory, having it corroborated, and then everyone agreeing and it's right. Okay, but to me, science is supposed to be finite, absolute. So to me, you cannot change 1 + 1 is 2. It just is. So I don't know what my question is, but there's a circle Earth, but then there's a flat Earth.
Right.
One of those has to be finite. And the circle Earth theory covers seasons, covers these particular sums. Hang on. It covers H equals R minus R cos bracket S.
You're going to lose the audience, by the way, if you keep giving up math.
Well, I don't even understand what I'm saying, but it's like H equals height, R equals radius of the Earth, and S equals the arc length. All of these things, I assume, are finite. So, like, how can your theory work if the other theory has all the algorithms already attached to it and everything already works with it seasonally, sun, moon?
It works because they shoehorned it in. First, don't forget that we've only been doing this 6 years. And they took centuries to try to make it work. And they were wrong about everything, every step of the freaking way, to where now they're just making up stuff in the universe to try to fit their theories. Look up something called dark matter. Dark matter is an
I'm familiar with it.
The what?
I'm familiar with dark
Oh
matter
yeah,
because of,
dark matter. It's an
the Big
absolute
Bang
theory
Theory
that
show.
supposedly fills in the gaps of 95% of the universe. And
So
the
this
reason why
is
they have to, look, it's the Flat Earth app. It's a beautiful app. It's
the
wonderful.
Flat Earth app, but I just want people to see where the sun is, where the moon is.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's in real time. It'll show you where the sun is and the moon is and why, where the shadow is and where
Yeah.
it doesn't show exact gradients of exactly how bright the sun is in certain places, but it's accurate.
But is it? Yeah, that's my point though. Like you guys, how you said that with the globe theory, they've shoehorned it in.
Yeah.
But what's to say that that argument can't be reversed and that you guys have shoehorned your finite algorithms into the flat Earth theory?
You're right. The question is that how are we doing so well when the globe has been established for how are we even staying in the fight? Meaning, if flat Earth is so ridiculous, then why are we just bat it off to the side immediately? Meaning, I'll use the boxer reference, and that is, we are going into a boxing ring with this huge gorilla, right? And we should be pummeled in the first round. The problem is the longer we stay in that fight, the worse it looks for the big guy on the other side, because they're always like, why haven't you knocked out these guys yet? Why are they still standing? Right? Why, again, what you just said, things can be flipped, which is like their math.
Absolutely. It's religion. Like I get into arguments with Catholics all the time when I say that there's no point to a pontiff, and then they're like, and then they have their own Bible theory saying, no, you can't say that this about my Pope, and you can't say that Catholicism isn't Catholic. Yes, I can. The Bible says so. But do you know what I mean? It's like, it's the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, the question on the bottom of the screen, let me do this real quick.
Oh, yes, answer. So he's saying, where I am, the sun looks larger at rise and set.
No, it's not refraction. It's atmospheric lensing. That's a real thing. We didn't invent that. Any meteorologist will tell you this, which is, again, because you are looking through kind of like looking through a glass of water. You can do this with water. It's actually very interesting. You put a glass of water on the edge of a table and put a flashlight behind it and move the flashlight backwards, behind the glass. You can make that flashlight set. It's like, how is it set? It's a perfectly flat tabletop. Well, because the medium that is the water is bending it. No different than what we were talking about with the sun going off in the distance. Meaning you are looking through a thin version of water. That's why they call it atmospheric lensing. It will magnify, no different than any sort of lens, magnifies, so the tops and the bottoms will get chopped. Because if you take a magnifying glass, I think I have one lying right here. Take a magnifying glass and you zoom it in on certain things, you'll chop off the top and the bottom because you're zooming in on the center. And that's what happens with just about any object, which is why, you can find some footage of boats where it looks like the bottom and the top, or the bottom's getting, chopped off because of the horizon, but it's not. In fact, again, the brilliance of the design of this place, give credit to God here, is that it's constantly changing. So you can't totally get a beat on it. The atmosphere, as you know, weather conditions change not just daily, but hourly, depending on where you are. And that screws up so many observations, which is why you have to use time lapse in some cases. We've done time lapses across huge lakes in America, and or infrared. Infrared doesn't lie. But time lapse, it's wonderful because if there is any sort of mirage or illusion, you can see it, and those prove our point.
I would like to mention that one of the videos that I was watching in my rabbit hole of this topic was a guy who I forget the channel, but anyway, he was looking at declassified documents from the USSR.
Sure.
And NASA, and he was reading them from 1958.
Okay.
And in 1958, they were still operating. They were operating on the theory that the Earth was still flat. And And NASA was as well.
It's not even 1958. It's
earlier.
Earlier and later. Yeah, aircraft testing. When it's one of the qualifications, that is, when you're doing ballistic testing with certain things, you assume, and the verbiage, hopefully I don't butcher this, you assume a flat and stationary Earth. It's just like this one or two lines.
Yes, that's what they say. It's a flat and stationary Earth. That's exactly what they use, the geocentric model as opposed to the heliocentric model.
Yeah. I mean, the military guys, the subject matter list that I pasted into chat there, that's no joke, and it's a playlist on the channel called Flat Earth Testimony Shows by Subject Matter Experts. Every military guy I've talked to has said that when you're firing anything, when you're firing anything long distance, you are not taking into account the curvature of the Earth or the spin of the Earth into any firing solution. Doesn't matter if it's a missile, if it's a cannon, if it's a tank, if it's a torpedo. None of them take into account the curvature of the Earth. And yet, every once in a while, the news will drag out some sniper that says, "Oh yeah, I shot almost a mile, and I had to take account the curvature of the Earth." It's like, no, you didn't. I shoot. Right? There's two things on a scope: windage and elevation. There's only two things. There's no show me the curvature calculator on a scope, on a rifle, on anything. It doesn't exist. But yet every once in a while the news will bring this out. It's like, okay, I've talked to guys that fire 30, 50 times farther than this guy. And when you fire that long, in fact, I have one of my favorite guys is a tank guy out of United States Army. And he goes, do you know how hard it would be to do anything in military battles if we had to take into account the curvature and the spin of the Earth? He goes, we never get anything done. I mean, it would be, because at that point you'd have to not, up until now, it's like, okay, how far away it is, what's the elevation? Maybe windage if you're lucky, right? But if you're taking into account the spin of the Earth or the curvature, you'd have to be like, okay, where exactly am I on the map? Because remember, if it spins if your basketball is spinning 1,000 miles an hour at the center, it's spinning at 0 miles an hour on the top and the bottom. It means anywhere in between, it's like 500 miles an hour, 700 miles an hour. All these things would supposedly affect it. Well, one more thing out of it, since we're on this. If the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, then why is all the water completely uniform? Meaning, water is extreme.
Doesn't gravity hold it in and make it still appear flat? Isn't that the answer to the question you just asked?
Can only do so much. Meaning, if you're at a merry-go-round, right? If you're on the edge, you're holding on for dear life. If you're in the center, not much is going on. You're just spinning around in a circle, but you're not feeling any gravitational force. Yes, I'm going to say gravitational force. So why doesn't the water look? If you're in your car and you're holding a cup of coffee, you try to make a hard left turn. If that lid isn't on that cup of coffee, what happens? That coffee's going somewhere, right? So why isn't there this huge bulge of water around the equator, kind of like the rings of Saturn, only with water? Why isn't there a huge bulge of water around the equator? It's like, well, because gravity. It's like gravity wouldn't keep it completely uniform. I mean, you're saying that there should be bald spots on the top and the bottom of that damn thing. It should be a whole bunch of water in the middle. And again, we get away with it because people just we're just happy to be out of school when we're younger. And when we get out, it's like, yeah, we don't know much about anything, including virology and finances.
I just find it unusual, as someone who doesn't believe organizations that are larger than myself. I do find it unusual that these papers from Russia, USSR, and America by the time they had already said that they'd been to the moon, by that time and up until 1970. They were still operating on the theory that the Earth was flat in their secret documentation. That is odd. Yeah. And so, what does that lead to? And so again, I feel like I'm a centrist on this topic, but I don't know science. I'm very much an illiterate. So people watching this will say, "How dare she didn't push back enough? She's so easily led." No. I feel like I'm being as kind as I can be without believing everything you're saying, but still definitely taking on as much of it as I think I can.
I hear you, and believe me, look, I hated science. Well, I shouldn't say I hated science.
Well, I'm not a sciencey person. I'm history, politics, English, Spanish. Like, these are my things that I'm good at.
Most of the people that I've talked to in our community had to relearn science because of all the things we had to brush up on things that we were told because we forgot everything when we left school. And so, look, I know more little scientific factoids now than I ever did in university, just because it's like, okay, what are they saying? In fact, don't forget that everyone that is in our community starts out trying to disprove it. Everybody hates it, and nobody gets into it liking
Oh,
it. Right?
I don't care to disprove it. I just care to mention the things that don't make sense to me, and then that's pretty
But
much.
a lot of people though, when they get into it, they're like, "Yeah, flat Earth." David Weiss, first one to tell you, it's like, "Oh yeah, I hated it." He goes, "I would block people from my channel that would even bring it up."
Oh,
But when you start getting into it, it's like, okay, I can shut this thing down in 2 seconds. And then it's harder and harder. I worked on it for 9 months, tried to shut it down for 9 months. And then finally I gave up and made the videos and said, okay, help me out, internet. You're smarter as a group than you are individuals. Tell me where I screwed up. And I had all these people contact me. It's like, you're not nuts. Here's why. And they would give me ideas that I had never even thought of. I didn't think of long distance photography. I didn't think of vacuum versus gravity. What do we got here?
this is just compliments to me.
Oh, okay. I mean,
but there are other questions here. Hang on. If the sun is moving overhead, should it appear larger overhead?
no. The sun is fairly uniform because it's 3,000. If it's 3,000, given to take miles wide, or 3,000 miles away and 50 miles high. The problem is, again, the atmosphere, because the atmosphere is so inconsistent. It's always going to look bigger. It's kind of like phenomena. I still don't know why scientists haven't mentioned this. It's why the moon is always bigger on the horizon. You know, when the moon's coming up, it's like, oh my God, it's a huge moon. But then it gets smaller as it gets higher in the sky. It's because you're losing the atmospheric lensing. I do not know why scientists still throw that out there. It's like, well, we don't know why. It's like, yes, you do.
You don't know why. They were still operating that we came from apes.
Yeah, what's that line for the comedian I love so much? It's like, okay, if we came from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? You know?
Yeah, I've heard that. And then atheists get
it's
really mad, and then they say, "Oh, because it's a relative of the ape. It's not the ape. How is that so hard for you to understand?"
Yeah. And again, you know the argument was like, okay, the missing link is where exactly? Come on, don't get me started. It's the carbon dating system. Oh, by the way,
it's inaccurate. I already know this. Yeah,
the carbon dating system is absolute crap, which is why, by the way, why I bring up that fish, because because they don't want they
you
do
can't
not
observe what you didn't see. You didn't see the fish to know that you came from a fish.
Yeah, the fish is there, but you say that fish died off, 100 million years ago, and
oh, sorry, you're talking about that fish. I was talking about
that
something
fish.
else.
Well, yes, the fish argument as well. It's like, we evolved from all these things, but all these things are still here. There should be missing links in all sorts of different places, but they're not. I mean, yeah, there's some weird animals around, but no. The carbon dating system. By the way, that's the other thing really fast, which is why. The reason why you wouldn't want this to get out without you can be able to control it is religion. Oh, happy dog.
Sorry, he ate rat poison 2 days ago. Oh my gosh.
That's not good.
And now he's doing okay. Oh my gosh.
The religious houses of this world would go against science and immediately say, okay, so you were wrong about the whole globe thing. What?
Sorry, let me get him out. He just pushed in. Come on, get out. Come on. I'm still going. I want to learn. Get out. Get out.
We can wrap this up in a little bit.
I don't want to. Oh,
I know, but I've been going for 2.5 hours.
I know. Okay, we will. It's okay. Okay, keep going.
The major religious houses of the world would say, okay, so you were wrong about this whole globe thing. What else are you wrong about? Let's revisit the Big Bang Theory, evolution, carbon dating, dark matter. They'd never stop. Science would be in real trouble for a long time. And so what was this singer? Why is the shadows of the moon on Earth during an eclipse smaller than the diameter of the moon? Yeah, absolutely right. Well, that's the great question. Why is it? Because for us, it isn't smaller, because we say the moon is about 50 miles wide. So it's actually the perfect size for us. It only doesn't work for science, because science is a 2,000 mile wide moon. It doesn't exist. It's not that. The Earth is flat. How can somebody sail around the world? Great question. Ready? Here we go. So if I take my finger and I move it around this, I do a big circle, and I come back to my same starting point. Technically, I circumnavigated the world, right? Does that make the world a globe? Nope. If you circumnavigate your dinner plate with your finger, does that mean your dinner plate is a globe? No. Just because you came back to the same point, technically a needle on a record player comes back basically to the same point. Record flat.
Why don't you guys? Why don't whoever is your richest person that wants to help prove the theory right? Why don't you guys get 2 ships? So here's Australia, right here where my hand is.
I know the argument. Yeah.
Yeah, and then someone goes that way, someone goes that way, and see what the length is compared to the flat Earth model. And then that way you'd be able to prove it. I mean, I know you think you might be stopped by the military or that they might shoot you, but why doesn't someone just do that and prove it?
Because the Antarctic Treaty was expanded.
No, I'm not telling you to go to Antarctica. I'm telling you someone to travel all the way around and do the measurements. So you don't know my argument. You don't know my experiment.
No, I know this argument too. Okay. The problem with if you're going to use aircraft alone, ships is
ships, not aircraft.
How are you going to get? You're going to have to go around continents if you're using ships. I mean, it's tough to gauge. Remember, there's no odometer with ships when it comes to how far you've traveled. You can only go off the GPS system, which is part of. We'll use a matrix reference here. It's part of the system. Remember, the GPS is going to tell you not only where you are, but what it wants to tell you. And the GPS system is American military, so it's not gonna help you.
What about a drone? Fly the drone over the Antarctic wall to see what's on the other side.
16 drones were forbidden in Antarctica. Funny enough, weird that they would add that in there. They said it was for environmental reasons, but
doesn't matter. Do it anyway. How they won't know whose it belongs to. I mean, I don't think they would.
Like your style, yeah, rebel.
Do it anyway.
I bet you don't even wear a mask.
I don't.
Good for you.
Did you not know that? Yeah. No, I don't do that.
I wouldn't. I mean, I've heard horrible things about Australia, but
that's my state too. Melbourne, the city of Melbourne, Victoria. That's where that 8-month lockdown happened. I wasn't there. I was here in this house when that was happening. But yeah, it's pretty shitty.
Absolutely ridiculous. In fact, here, let me sum that up really quick for you. And I do have to go soon.
I know you got to go to sleep. People think I've been sucking your time out.
Anyone that gives me
using you.
What?
I'm just using you because you're my current rabbit hole.
I've done worse. The time zone thing is just like, oh god, what time do I have to get up? I once had Russell Brand. His show called me up and they said, "Can you get up?"
Russell Brand?
Yeah. Can you do a show at he does a lunchtime show. It's like, that's 3 a.m. my time. And it's like, yeah, can you do it? It's like, fine, I'll do it. And they didn't tell him. It was kind of a fun interview to do. Crap, what was I just talking about?
Oh, hang on, let me think. Russell Brand, you went on his show?
No. Before Russell Brand, it was. Okay, the virus. Okay, so real quick, people say, I know I'm getting a little sleepy. So people say,
I'll let you go. I'm so sorry.
They say, you're not taking it seriously. I go, you want me to take the virus seriously? Fine. Answer, because I will boil things down to usually a sentence or two or a paragraph. But this one's a simple sentence. It's like, okay, you want me to take it seriously? Here it is. You can throw this back at anybody. Forget about all the long-winded things about virology and incubation periods and all this other crap. Tell me why smoking was banned on airplanes.
Okay.
The reason is because, well, secondhand smoke kills people. Nothing stops smoke. Even our lungs can't stop smoke. So if you're a smoker and you have a spouse and you breathe on them long enough, they're going to get cancer. Everybody knows this, right? Okay. So they eventually said, yeah, we can't have smoking on airplanes ever again because the filters don't do crap. The filters cannot stop smoke. Every pilot has told me the same thing, which is the filters are basically just furnace filters. If you make coffee in the back of the plane, the pilot will smell it in less than 90 seconds. That's how fast air circulates through the cabin. Okay. It's an incubator. I have done business travel for a number of years. Every business traveler knows this. It's like if you get on a business plane and 2 or 3 guys are sick, you know full well it's like, oh crap, whatever they have, hopefully I've had it already. Right? Okay, so if smoking is banned on airplanes and smoke particles are 50 to 80 times larger than an airborne virus particle, why are the planes still flying? Why didn't the planes ever shut down? Why are the airports still open? The planes never stopped flying here. Oh yeah, borders closed. I mean, you couldn't, do international travel in some cases, but that was a country issue. Domestically, you could fly anywhere you want. I flew last year. Not very many places because there were very few places we could do without masks, but I flew places. No one ever asked me a single thing. How is that even possible? People forget how serious a real contagion is. I mentioned the Steven Soderbergh movie Contagion. You want to know what it really looks like?
Contagion.
It's like nobody goes anywhere. Everything is locked down. The airports are closed. The grocery stores are closed. People literally hide behind their doors. Nobody goes outside. There's no masks. Nobody. You see any masks in that movie? No, you saw full containment suits. The masks did nothing. The masks.
Oh, I know. I already know that. Yeah.
So it's like, no, nobody can forgive me any. It's like, you can't make me. You want to make me take it seriously? Find me a group of younger people that just dropped like a sack of freaking dirt. Find me. It never ever happened. Find me a healthy person. It's the shock and awe that gets people feared. It's like, find me one of your friends, like 35-year-old guy jogging, right? And then all of a sudden 2 weeks later, gone. And just like, wow, he looked so great. Like it's totally a surprise to me. Find me a group of volleyball players that were playing on the beach together, and then 3 of them are gone now. It's never ever happened. The whole year I knew one person. He was my uncle. He was almost 90. He was a recovering stroke victim. He got pneumonia, then was admitted to the hospital. And while there's like, oh yeah, by the way, you have COVID, and then he died. And what do you think they put him as? It's like, did he die of the pneumonia? Did he die of the stroke? Did he die of being 90? Nope. He died of
C19.
It was ridiculous. And no. And so I don't, that's not supposed to be a sympathy thing. It's like, look, that was an entire.
No, but with this topic, you and I do agree.
Yeah. I mean, I've done
with C19 at least.
Yes, I ask my callers all the time. I go, tell me about somebody, anyone. And nobody. Now, the agenda behind this is sinister and it's brilliant. It has worked flawlessly, and some countries better than others. But
yeah, actually, my interview next week is with a doctor that works for the World Health Organization.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, I did it yesterday because she couldn't do it next Wednesday, so only the chat will be live. This is the last question from an audience member. Sorry to ask again. I want to see you destroy them is all. Have you debated JF or NDG Tyson publicly? Vox Day destroyed JF a couple of years ago. I don't know who JF is, but I'm assuming Neil deGrasse Tyson is.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Who's JF?
JF, I don't know.
Somebody type that in. Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't do debates. First off, he only does stage performances.
Of course.
That is his talent. Look, you go with what you're good with, and he is very good on stage. He's got a wonderful stage performance. He's I call him, he's a cross between Bill Cosby and Sinbad.
But he knows the earth is flat at some level because he said it, so he must be in on the secret.
I don't think he objectively knows, because remember,
I wouldn't say that.
He's better. It's like, does Neil deGrasse Tyson know? Was he briefed on the topic? Probably not, because you want him acting naturally. You don't want him acting squirrely about this. But he doesn't do debates ever, just because that's just not his thing. And he said, not even shy about it. He goes, I don't do debates. He debates nothing about anybody. He just goes on stage. I call him the science.
I wouldn't do a debate. I don't feel smart enough to do a debate on any particular topic. I always am the moderator, but I would never do a debate.
Oh yeah, I think you're more of a moderator. Who's JF though?
He just wrote here, JF Gariepi. I don't know. They still haven't clarified who JF is. I'm sorry. I thought they would have by now. I did want to say that I find it interesting that is it the UN that has a flat Earth map?
Oh yeah. I could.
That's interesting, right? That the UN has a flat Earth map.
Flag. You could type in UN flag, and it uses the exact map that we use. The only exception is they don't. He's a French Canadian. Oh, wait, I know. Wait, JF is. I was thinking Jordan. I was thinking Jordan Peterson, but that's not.
That would not be an Earth.
He's a.
I don't know who it is.
I know who he is.
Sorry.
And if I don't know who he is, well, not much I can do. The UN flag, the only difference is instead of Antarctica around the edge, right, there is wreaths, these giant spiky Greco-Roman wreaths around the outside, which I think is interesting. And I mentioned that in the clues, which is the UN flag is, they're calling it out. Why wouldn't they? In fact, people say, well, that's the only way you could just depict the world. It's like, no, there isn't. There's all sorts of different projections you could use. Using the AE map as the UN flag doesn't make any damn sense. Because also, why would you leave out an entire continent? Antarctica literally is not represented in the UN flag. Why would you do that? And part of that is because, well, nobody owns Antarctica. It's no man's land.
Yeah.
So,
they're just another great show. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I hope that I was respectful.
You asked wonderful questions. Thank you, and I'm glad you. Is there any way I could get an just send me a link of where I can find this later?
Oh, of course. Yes, please share it, please.
That
would be lovely.
Once my community guideline thing is gone, I will. Well, I'll share it with other people anyway. But
put it on the Flat Earth app.
I will. You know what? I will send it to David Weiss, and he'll put it up.
Oh, okay, cool. That'd be nice. I think what David Weiss is doing is really interesting. If anyone thinks they can debate David Weiss, he will give you $36,000 in Bitcoin if you can debunk him. So everyone try.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, have you already talked to him?
No, I've never spoken to him. I just know about, the only reason I know about him is because another flat earther friend of mine said that. He said there's this guy named David Weiss, and he's trying to find someone who can beat him on the arguments, and if you do, he'll give you Bitcoin, and it's worth $36,000.
Well, actually, I think it's worth $50,000 now.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah, but it doesn't really. I mean, yeah, the Bitcoin thing is a great little hook, and
it is. Yeah, it's clever. But anyway, I don't know where I am on the topic yet. But with the science, I can't operate. It's just not there for me.
Right.
But with the papers in 1958 and in 1986, they were still operating on a flat Earth theory. That is odd. That is odd.
Let me give you my parting shot here, which is for you and anybody else. It's like, look. Everything I've said just now, take it with a grain of salt.
Do your own research.
I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to persuade you. I'm just here to put a couple ideas in your head. What I encourage everyone to do always is do your own research, ask questions, figure it out for yourself, because that way, when you come to your conclusion, you came to it. It didn't necessarily come from me. I'm just the one that brought up the topic. So again, the line that I love so much, which is, look, we all know there's conspiracies out there in just about everything you can think of. It's just what you're willing to look at and what you're not. And I said it earlier. And then look, trust everyone, but count your change. There you go.
Okay. And everyone, remember, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
There you go.
All right. End broadcast.